Good evening and welcome to the November 22nd, 2020 meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors. Apologize for being a few minutes late. We were actually in executive session prior to this meeting considering 8 legal matters. So a little bit busy tonight. So with that, I will call the meeting to order and ask Mr. Neese to call the roll.
Nawn.
Present.
Porches.
Here.
Roberts Lightcap.
Here.
Russo.
Here.
Altieri.
Here.
Your special counsel is here in your manager.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. For our moment of silence this evening, let's, with Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday, let's keep in mind all we're thankful for. And secondly, let's pray for all the citizens and everyone impacted by the events in Waukesha, Wisconsin in the last couple of days. Okay, please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have before us this evening's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as written or consideration of any changes.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the agenda as written. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda are the minutes. We've hopefully had a chance before the meeting to review the minutes from our November 8th, 2021 meeting. I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as written or consideration for any changes.
I don't think that they were attached. I would table that.
You need to table it. Okay, that item is tabled. We will take that up at the next meeting. Item 7, one presentation this evening, architectural rendering for Aronimink Country Club expansion. I think Mr. Damico is here, so take it away.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, may it please the board. My name is Mark Damico, and I have the pleasure here of representing Aronimink Golf Club. Our firm has had the privilege also of representing the club historically for the golf maintenance facility 7 or 8 years ago, and then 16 years ago, the last clubhouse renovation. My father worked with a team to get the approvals for that. We're here tonight because we were here in April, and at that time we had constructed a small addition to the existing golf patio in anticipation of an outdoor kitchen addition, and that was unfortunately done without the proper permitting. So we came before you in April, basically after I had had some conversations with the township engineer and Mr. Reczek, basically saying we had some plans that Chester Valley had been working on that would have resulted in a small retention area near the golf putting green, and basically said we're coming in with this bigger project. And Ms. Nelson and Andy suggested that maybe it's better that you wait because there's going to be a lot more work to be done. So at that point in time, it was April, and we were very confident that within 6 months, we would have had our land development plans filed and we would be underway. So best laid plans, that didn't quite work out, but we've been real busy over the last year, and that's the presentation you've got on the board. So if I can just, I know you have a very busy agenda, so I'll try to be as brief as I can. So the page that's up here now, there's basically 5 stars. In the lower left section, that large gray area is the existing clubhouse. So the first project will be a project that does not involve land development. That would be some significant improvements to the interior of the clubhouse, moving some walls, making it a little more casual, and doing a lot of updates. If you've been to the club recently, it's a gorgeous clubhouse, but the interior is needs some tender loving care. So and that's that next slide that you're seeing is just a sort of a watercolor of some of the renovations that would be done. But if you can go back to the prior slide there, thank you very much. So the land development application is unfortunately going to be in 2 phases, and that's because we're trying to get some work done. And so in those lower 2 stars, the one is the golf patio expansion and renovation. It's mostly a renovation. It's not so much an expansion. There's going to be about 40 extra seats, but it's mostly about getting rid of the deck patio, tearing it down, extending it with flagstone from the existing patio, which will really upgrade it and allow you to get a better view of the golf course. Right now, the patio just goes straight out and then it's got a railing. So it's essentially cutting off a lot of the view to the golf course. So that's one project that will be on the land development application that we hope to have filed in the next couple months. Over on the lower right-hand side, there's a little red building. That is a proposed indoor golf learning center. So it's essentially a building that will allow you to hit golf balls in the winter and allow the golf pros to teach all year round inside if it's too hot or too cold, and enables them. Right now, they wheel out golf clubs every day and they have a tent. They have all sorts of stuff that this would, and the indoor golf learning center would allow all that to be housed in one central location. So the sequence and the expectation is that the golf patio and the golf learning center would be ready to build in about a year. So the end of the golf season, November of 2022. In order to do that, we need to get plans in pretty quickly here, and that's the expectation. The other 2 stars in the middle of the screen there, the pool is going to be relocated. Right now, it's between the clubhouse and where you're looking at that pool, and that's going to become a lawn area. That pool's about 60 years old. It should have been replaced probably 20 years ago, but it's an expensive project, and we're finally getting ready to do that. And then at the top of the screen there's a little star by the racket center. The plan there is to add 4 pickleball courts in place in lieu of one of the hard true courts that's there, to move that hard true court over by the pool. So we would end up with the same amount of tennis courts, adding 4 pickleball courts and adding 2 platform tennis courts. So those projects aren't close enough to completion by the architect. So we can't, in order to not slow the project down, we were hoping to have 1 land development application. Obviously, that would have been much more efficient, but that's not possible. So just by way of background, and we don't need to go through all those slides. I'm happy to go through them if you'd like, or answer any questions. I know you've got a very busy agenda, but we're really lucky to have a guy named John Kluver, Witch and McIntosh. They're a local architect. They've done a lot of projects, including the residential renovations to Villanova along Route 30, if you've seen that. So they've been hard at work, literally, thousands of hours since about last January. And the expectation again was that we would have had plans to submit to the township in August or September, and we're just not quite there yet. So that's where we are. So the ask would be to extend the resolution that you approved back in April to give us a couple more months. We'll have the land development application in. Chester Valley Engineers has gotten the plans from the architect, so they're now engaged to actually prepare land development plans. They're going to be doing some perk testing shortly in and around the golf patio and where the proposed site of the golf learning center, which is again at the top of the range on the right-hand side near the woods. So I'll stop talking there. And again, if you'd like, we can go through each slide and I can tell you what's there. but I know you have a busy agenda, so.
Any board members, have any questions for Mr. Damico regarding this?
Do you have a date certain that you would be prepared to come back in so the board could, if they extend it, is extending it for a specific period of time?
So if we had a conference call with the architect and Chester Valley engineers last week. And I said, we've got to give them a date so that we can hit that date. So we're asking for 3 months. We're hoping that we have the plans in 2 months, but that gives us just a month so we don't have to do this again. Anything can happen over the winter and hopefully.
And it's 3 months from basically today. Is
3
that what
months
you're-
from tonight would
Yeah,
be.
that's what I
ideal.
wanted to make sure of
Ideal.
clarity, because I think we're past the 6-month piece today. So I just wanted to make sure where we are.
Yes, sir. If I put the architect and the engineer on the spot and I said, if this
Yeah.
board gave us 3 months, we don't want to go back. So they said that would be adequate.
So I'm looking at the February 22nd meeting. Is that the date that you're thinking of?
Well, we would be, well,
December,
the ask is to
January,
make the
February.
application within 3 months. And then we looked at the schedule and the idea would be, we think we're going to be able to get on the March Planning Commission
March Planning Commission.
agenda.
Okay, so I just wanted you to be aware of what's.
No, and I think that makes sense. They can't really do much, not really doing much golf this time of year anyway. So. What's the board's pleasure? We have this under new business. The first item, you want to deal with it now, or do you want to take it later on under new business? Okay, make a motion.
Yeah, so what are we looking at?
Going to have it submitted in time for the March
March,
Plan Commission.
so make the extension.
March.
Whatever,
Do
what's
we
the
need
date,
a
Steve?
physical date, Steve, on the
Should we
motion?
get a by, which is saying the March Planning Commission meeting, or just?
Yeah.
The March Planning Commission.
March Plan Commission meeting.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve an extension of the land development waiver for Aronimink Country Club to the March 2022 Planning Commission meeting.
For a second,
Second.
motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lightcap to approve the extension of the land development waiver for Aronimink Country Club until the March 2022 Planning Commission meeting. Any further questions or discussions on that item on the side for members of the board? Any comments from members of the general public regarding this particular item? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Moving on to reports, Chief Lunn, anything to add?
Mr. Brown, if I could just one, in case there's anybody here for the Stony Knoll, I don't know if, I just talked to the developer, I have information for you that might interest
Please,
people.
please.
So Stony Knoll was on the agenda for tonight. Tonight was the deadline for the board under the Municipalities Planning Code to consider approval or denial of the Stony Knoll development, the subdivision up off of Wayland Road. Unfortunately, our engineer had a conflict and was not able to attend tonight. And I told the developer it didn't make sense to go forward without your engineer here to be able to ask engineering questions to. They granted us an extension through December 13th, which is our next meeting. So in case you just want to let folks know, if they don't have to hang around if they're here for the Stony Knoll development, there'll be no presentation tonight.
Item number 11 on the agenda, the Stony Knoll land development hearing or presentation will not be held this evening. As our solicitor just said, it is on the agenda we will put it on the agenda for the December 13th meeting, which you'll need to pay attention. It'll be a different location than here. Tonight's our last meeting in 2021 in this building while we undertake the library renovation. So at any rate, Stony Knoll will be on the December 13th agenda. So if you're here for Stony Knoll, we won't be offended if you get up and leave, but you're welcome to stay for the whole meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Chief Lunn, anything to add to your report?
Nothing new to add.
Thank you, Chief. Questions?
How are we doing with the police dog?
Very well. Completed the 12-week training on Friday. So it is certified and actually had to be called out twice today
Great. Wow.
and was successful both times.
Outstanding.
Great, thank you.
Chief Everlof, anything to add to your report? Thank you. I understand that Mr. Sharretts is on vacation, correct? Yes. Fantastic. Andy, anything to add to your report? All right. Rich, anything to add to your report?
Sir.
Okay. He's not here. Mr. Neese, that brings us to you. Oh, Arlene, you're not even on. Not on my list here. Arlene, you have a report? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. Mr. Neese.
So I do have a couple things that are on the list, and then just a reminder, you kind of already stated that this is our, actually tomorrow night is the last meeting that we'll actually have in the room, but this is the last board meeting in this room for the year. We are aiming to be at the school district. We will confirm everything and hopefully have that out early part of next week, letting everybody know where all the meetings are for December. Most of our committee meetings are canceled. We will have municipal authority. We will have the board meetings, and it'll be most likely two. And then we will have the zoning and potentially planning all in December. And all of those will be at potentially an off-site location. We have a fallback. We will be using the Public Works garage if we can't get something else. So that is our plans. The good news is
I want to sit in the dump truck.
you want to sit in the dump truck. Okay. I was hoping not to do it for the board meetings, but but real quick, if you recall, I don't know, about 4 meetings ago, I told you that if we wanted to continue to maintain our bond rating, that we needed to do the guarantee of the municipal authority bonds and change that guarantee to be a little bit more aggressive. Then we went through the whole process, had our bond counsel write it up, went through the process, was told that the bondholders had to approve it. Then all of a sudden they came back and said the bondholders didn't need to approve it. And basically you all decided not to approve it at the last meeting. And I want to just tell you that was actually a really smart move, and you didn't even know it at the time. Our bond rating actually came back for the municipal authority bonds. It stayed at the AA1, but your bond rating for the township has gone up to AAA. So we are now a AAA bond rated community. And so I just want to congratulate the town on that. That's a big deal. And so thank you.
How many municipalities have that?
Huh?
How many municipalities have that?
I knew you were going to ask me that question.
Or should I say, how many don't have that? Yeah.
Quite a few don't. I mean, some of the bigger municipalities do, but it's a really amazing task. And it says that when you go out, you stand on your own. You don't need anybody to back you when you go out for your borrowings. And so that's a really solid place to be.
I think that's great, Mr. Neese. It's a testament to your hard work, to Mr. Lafiata's hard work. You guys have really kept us on the financial straight and narrow, and I think we appreciate that. So, very well done.
I will say I'm totally shocked. I was told we would never get it. So, I've given up in trying to understand Moody's.
So the news now is going to keep, your reports are going to keep getting better and better now, right?
Yeah, I keep trying.
Okay.
So if you're familiar, there's 2 light towers that are out by our ball field back here. They're both gasoline light tower, generated gasoline light towers. The Newtown Soccer League is offering to donate those to the township if we're interested. We've taken a look at it from the public works standpoint. I'll be honest with you, they're older towers. They're not new. They're not energy efficient. They're not any of those things, but they would be a win for us on a couple lines. One would be if we are out on a job site at night, that we give the guys a chance to potentially bring in light working at night at, where we have an emergency out. And then the other thing would be, it would also be a win for us in regards to potential. It really is a generator. And so we have a couple places from time to time that we need a portable generator.
Traffic signals.
And well, not just there, but I'm thinking pump stations We have, most of our pump stations have backup, but we have one that doesn't. And so this would be an opportunity to get it set up so that we could at least take the temporary and go put it in and have it there. So I'm recommending that we go ahead and accept that, but I wanted to make sure that you all were in agreement and there wasn't any issue there.
That's great to send them a generous thank you letter.
Yeah, we will do that. The next thing on your list is the Township Emergency Operations Plan. We put it in your packet for you. I'm asking that you review it. We're going to be asking that you adopt it at the meeting on the 13th. I was going to do it, but we didn't get it to you with enough time for you to have a long enough time to review it. It's fairly lengthy. So I'm just giving you a heads up. It'll take you a little bit to read through it. Most of it's boilerplate, but if you could please read through that. And then in January, we're probably going to be getting together with the EOC coordinator and actually going through the event that we just had. We had a tabletop event last Friday. And so we want to go through, and we came up with a list of action items from that tabletop event that we know we need to make some adjustments to. So we'll be doing that probably sometime in January for you to get that update.
The proposed emergency operations plans on the website. Anybody that wants to take a look at it
Yes,
from the residents. Or anything.
yes, that is true.
Anything else?
I'm sure I did, but that's all I'm going to give you at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Neese? Moving on, payments. We have 3 items. Item 9.1, consider approving the $1,250 escrow release payment to Keystone Custom Decks for a completed project at 3714 Gradyville Road.
Moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Which was made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 9.1. Any questions, discussions from members of the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 9.2, consider approving the $71.75 escrow release payment to Bruce Azalone for a completed grading project at 3526 Woodcrest Avenue.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Which is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 9.2. Any further questions, discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 9.3, consider approving the $1,149.28 developers escrow release to Tom Pereira for a completed project at 20 Reese Avenue.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Roberts Lakeham, seconded by Supervisor Russo to approve item 9.3. Any further questions and discussions on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Under the bills, I'll offer them as one motion. I had the opportunity for this evening's meeting to review the bills on check register A dated today in the amount of $352,501.50. And the bills on check register B also dated today in the amount of $83,495.09 is my recommendation that we approve those bills.
Second.
Which was seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Any questions or discussions from members of the board on the bills? Any questions, comments from members of the general public on the bills? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. As previously announced, item 11, the land development approval for Stony Knoll has been continued until the 13th of December, our next meeting at theoretically the school district headquarters there.
Yes.
And that'll be confirmed. Under new business, item 1, we've already taken care of the land development waiver for Aronimink Country Club. Item 12.2, discussion with possible action the recommendations of the Finance Committee to use the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funds for the immediate stormwater infrastructure needs. Additionally, during 2022, to develop a plan to understand stormwater needs and explore possible funding solutions.
So after reviewing the document that we shared with you last meeting from our engineer related to what's existing and understanding that we still have to get a plan that I believe you'll be directing our engineer to look at all of the non-existing stormwater management systems that we have in that we think we might need. We've already looked at two. You've looked at the one for the Heights, and you've looked at, or you've gotten a report on the one for the Heights, and you've gotten a report on the one for Upper St. Albans, Tyson,
Yes.
Horton area. We know from the township staff side that there's probably about 10 more that need to be addressed. And so what our recommendation is that we get that report in the early part of next year. We take a full evaluation of what the expenses are related to stormwater and look at how we should look at funding that going forward, making a decision. But in the intermediate time, while we're looking at a bigger picture, we have 729,000 today, or 749. Am I saying that right? 729. 700
700,000 and change. you got it.
and change. It works out to almost be about 1.5 million that we got from the our ARPA funds. And so our recommendation would be that we do a project over the next 2 years, maybe 3 years, spending that money. We've already put in to spend 500 next year, doing a kickstart while we get the funding underway for going on for full projects going forward. And so this keeps us moving forward, but at the same time, would it get us a full plan of how we're going to fund this on an ongoing basis.
I think it's a good idea. I think we need to get moving on some of these since we have so many of them.
Yep.
That appear to be coming up. I think we need to start spending some money on actual improvements. And certainly at the same time, we need to get a plan together too, so we can budget these in the future. Now, if I'm not mistaken, even with the ARPA funds, we still don't have enough money to fund some of these projects. Is that correct?
We don't. Right now is a horrible time to be going out and doing these projects. If we went out, we asked for bids for a project here locally that actually it's the one over on Green Valley Road. We thought it was going to be under the $21,000 threshold. All bids came in greater than 21,000, and several of the bids came in with a 22-week lead time. And so we're going back out with an actual RFP required bid process because it's over the 21,000.
Right.
And it will be for the entire, both projects complete that we wanted to do. And so I anticipate that number is going to be much bigger than what we had originally thought. And so I would just say that we're going to be spending money pretty quickly on these projects. And if we might be able to, I'm asking Eileen to come up with a couple projects that we can do with the monies that we have to maybe lessen our worst spots, at least for a time frame until we can come up with a complete plan to address everything.
Or possibly stage some of our worst spots, maybe
Yes.
we can do part of the project
Yes.
to get some relief. That's it. And
That's the
obviously,
idea.
gotta be done on the lower end, but work our way upstream.
Yeah.
What action do you need from the board?
We're just wanting you to basically take this commitment tonight that it's okay that that's how we're going to use the ARPA funds because that's how we've got them budgeted. And so we just want to, we view it as two separate items. You're going to approve the budget tonight as one piece, or not approve it, but you're going to approve to advertise it. But we want, because the ARPA funds are specific, we felt like the board needs to take action to say, this is how we want to spend up. And I do.
Everybody want to offer a motion?
Well, someone's, and then I'll do it just because I have a couple of questions. I'll make the motion to approve the American Rescue Plan Act funds for immediate stormwater infrastructure needs.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Your questions, Mr. Altieri?
So the way that this agenda item is written, it says discussion with possible action item, the recommendation of the Finance Committee. Did they present to us a recommendation in terms of what the projects are, or are they just saying that they think that we should use the ARPA funds for stormwater?
They did not pick specific projects. They would believe that would be left up to you as the board and us as staff to come back with recommendations to you.
I know
Of
they've been
what-
looking at infrastructure, so that's why I was asking that.
Excuse me?
I said, I know that they were asking, they've been asked to look at some infrastructure projects.
They're looking at infrastructure in very broad swipes.
Yep.
And they're saying, so they took the report that Eileen gave you and they looked at that and they said, this number is bigger than we're going to be able to finance in any one given year. And we knew that obviously going in. And so what they want to do is they want to take that number plus they want to add the number, like I said, that what we think is going to cost to do those 11 to 15 other projects around town so that we have good stormwater throughout. And so maintaining what we have in the ground already, which is part of the project, and that's what Eileen gave you numbers on already. And then the second piece is adding all of those places where we get complaints today. And we have, like I said, there's about 10 to 15 that we need to take a look at. We as staff are going to start taking a look based on Eileen's report that we have back and see if we can't take and do a kind of a marry of maintaining a couple things that we know that are broken today, and then take and look at a couple spots where we would like to do something new to help solve a problem in some neighborhoods that continue to have washouts. And so, and hopefully come up with something that we can spend this 1.5 million that will make an impact maybe in a couple different places or 3 different places around town that will make a change that will help make a difference going forward.
So when do you expect to come back to this board with those projects?
I would hope that we would take what we know today and that Eileen and staff would start working on that, and probably Eileen and I haven't had this detailed conversation, but I'm hoping early part of February or late part of February, early part of March, so we can get something done in 2022.
And I'm guessing you guys have already prioritized what are the serious issues, well, what are the more pressing issues versus those that are not the most pressing? And I know that's a loaded question. because
It's a
everybody
really
thinks-
loaded question because it
yeah.
depends on who you talk to.
Yeah. From
What
an
we're
engineering
trying,
perspective. let's say
what
for
we're
now.
trying to look at, what I've asked Eileen to say, is there any place with existing stormwater that's so bad if we don't do something? For example, the 2 projects that we're going out to bid for right now, those 2 we think are safety issues going forward. So we're trying to get those addressed and get those done right away. Our idea would be really, though, to try to take and do something in some of the neighborhoods that don't have anything in place, just to kickstart to show that the board's got concerns in those areas. I do not have specifics as to which neighborhoods they are. The challenge is these dollars are like a microcosm of
Yeah.
what we need for the big projects.
understand
And
that.
so, but is there something we can do today and then look at what would be the best way to go forward?
So the way you just answered that last question gives me just 2 last questions. The first one is, do we have any information whether this municipality will be receiving any money from the infrastructure bill that was passed?
I do not have anything that makes me think that it's coming to the municipal level as I understand it.
Okay.
I do believe dollars will be coming into the state and county level for the types of projects that we are going to do. Whether they will ever be funding that's offered to our level, I would be guessing
Got it.
at this point.
The last question that I have is, have we tasked the finance committee to come up with or begin having discussions of how we can put a plan together to finance the overall projects that we have here? Now, I know that we're going out for another plan, right? You want to do, the second motion will be something for a plan, but I guess I'm asking, we have, and this is right, here comes my same story that I've said over and over again. I don't want to continue to have the same discussions 6
Right.
different ways, 5 different times. So if we can finally, which it sounds like we're doing the first part, start putting some shovels in the ground. But at the end of the day, right, this ARPA money is only 1.5 million. This is a couple $1 million project that we need to do for the township. So are they having discussions to kind of help steer the board in a way that we can fund these in the long term?
So really the last part of this motion where it talks about exploring the funding possibilities, that's the purpose. They're prepared to do that. They just want to, they really would like to be given direction from the board saying, yes, go, give us And we've already talked about 3 or 4 possibilities of ways of doing this, and how to pay for this going long-term. And so we just need to understand from the board that you're open right now. We'll start putting those plans together. Rich and I have actually met with the subcommittee. We started talking about some details, but before we present details to the board, we just want to make sure that you're all kind of thinking in those lines, and that's what you're expecting, because it will be, I mean, these numbers are big. And so if we're really going to do this, we're going to have to figure out some way to pay for this. And it's probably not going to come from general fund dollars as it is today.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Altieri?
I just have one other comment, but I'll save it for the next motion. Which I guess is comical. I don't know.
Okay. Any other board member have any comments or questions for Mr. Neese? Any members of the general public have any comments to offer on this motion? Step up to the podium. Please state your name and address for the record.
Louis Rosenthal, 20 Harrison. This is my first in-person meeting I've been able to attend. I've dialed in. I've lived in the township about a year. And it seems like this discussion on stormwater issues continues to happen. And I encourage, it sounded like Supervisor Altieri was asking questions, but really laying out the right kind of a project plan that I think the town needs to sort of do. I would balance it off by quality of life. And so as we look at funding sources, let's just sort of think about how some of our neighbors exist in some of these stormwater issues. I don't have them, so I don't know what it's like, but I read about it and I hear you guys talking about it, and it seems really, really painful. So I would say if we cut the project in half of what is ideal, balance it off by the number of neighbors that will be impaired by that. So that's the trade-off. Thanks for the comment.
Thank you, sir. You highlight a good point. Where you live is a relatively new development. And, you know, within the last 20 years, as new developments goes in, we've been getting all the stormwater improvements that we need so they don't have future stormwater problems. What we're stuck with are developments from the 60s, 70s that never were built or were built prior to enacting the stormwater regulations, and we're playing like catch up. And unfortunately, it's a very big number. I mean, we're looking at $40–50 million worth of improvement. It's way bigger than anything we've tackled so far. So appreciate your comments. Thank you. Any other members of the general public like to offer comment on this issue? Hearing and seeing none. Motion on the floor. Everybody understand the motion?
Yep.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, Mr. Rose.
Thank you.
All right. Item 12.3, consider approving the installation of electronic speed signs along Troop Farm Road. The associated costs will be covered by the Springton Point Woods Homeowners Association.
Yes, and there's several members of the Springton Point Woods Homeowners Association here. I'm going to let them come and tell you what it is they want to do, and then we'll explain why I want you to approve it.
Mark, step up to the podium. Please give us your name and address for the record.
Okay. Today I'm coming to in capacity of being the president of the HOA, of course, for Springton Point Woods. And hello, everybody. Nice to see you.
Hello, Mark.
So anyway, so with me is Art Erzner, Peter Nuchel, and Tom Greco, also on the board at Springton Point Woods. And also we've had a lot of discussions over the past couple of years, at least, with Steve and George Sharretts and Chief Lunn about the speeding on True Farm Road and trying to figure out what's the best way to deal with it. So obviously we have stop signs. They don't do much good. They do some wood. And we thought about many different things we could do. So no problem. We decided Springton Point Woods Association would pay for the 3 electronic signs that, I don't know, Steve, did you give it the?
They were in the packets.
Okay. So we're looking at putting in the electronic signs on True Farm Road, 3 of them, 1 for each direction, 1 at the bottom of the hill as they come down, and using them as the route between 252 and Stony Point Drive. Right? The copies of these pictures you have as the radar sign, speed signs. They basically tell you the speed, the capacity of adding comments such as slow down, too fast. And they also have a Wi-Fi connection that, of course, we will have a connection to, in which case we can also print reports from it. We can give them to Chief Lunn so he can see those that are speeding exactly what's going on. We are not looking to charge any fees. We're not in the business to make money on it or pay you for making money on it. But definitely, we see it as a great plus in order to really stop the speeding. Chief feels it's a very strong process. We accepted that, and we're about to, buy these 3 signs and put them up. But of course, we felt we should have your approval first because it is using your street, Troop Farm Road, even though the signs will be attached to our light poles, which we pay electricity for, which we will be paying for related to these signs come up. So with all that in mind, in summary, we'd like to conclude the approval of Springton Point Woods to put up these 3 signs. We aren't looking for any money from the town, so that's a good thing, I know. And it should make Troop Farm Road a safer drive for anybody driving on it. And of course, make Springton Point Woods a safer community to live in. So that's what we're about to do. That's what we feel, and we're looking for your approval. Any questions?
I have just 2 quick questions for Mr. East. Mr. East, we're going to be the ones installing the signs, correct?
No,
No.
No, you guys.
they're installing them. They're installing them on their poles. The reason why we're before you tonight is Troop Farm is your road.
Right.
And even though they're installing them on their poles, I believe that because it's a speed calming device, you need to approve that as part of the process.
Since it's our road jurisdiction, our police, our public works has to
Yes.
approve the placement and bless the final installation, things like that.
So here's a couple real quick things. I don't want to drag this out, but we have looked at some other methods of speed calming along that road. That the road is really not conducive to. It's not conducive to speed tables because of where the curb is, the number of entrances, where we would have to put them. They're very limited, even if we could get them in. And so the chief has looked at this. I've actually talked to PennDOT about it. And they think that this is probably one of the better ways to try to address speed calming in this area. And it allows us to do so. And the HOA is willing to move forward and take the cost on in doing it. And it may be a model that we could potentially use in other neighborhoods.
I think it's a great idea, and I applaud Mark and the rest of the HOA for agreeing to do this. I just want to make sure that, again, since it's our road and we have the ultimate responsibility, that whatever goes out there meets our requirements.
We are making sure they meet all of our requirements. In fact, I believe this order is based off of what the chief actually did the research on to provide, and that's why we're here now.
Okay. Any other board members have questions? You said you had something.
Yeah, I actually thought that we were doing 2 motions for the last one, so I'll just save it for board comment.
Any other questions from members of the board on this item?
Make a motion
Okay, go ahead.
to approve request to put up the speed signs paid for by the owners.
There's second.
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycett to approve item 12.3. Prior to us taking motions, anybody from the general public like to offer comment on this item? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all
Thanks for stepping up.
yeah,
Appreciate it.
for trying to find a solution. So we really do appreciate
All right, item 12.4, consider approving the bid from Serpro for remediation as well as installation and vapor barrier replacement on the EMS trailer at a not to exceed amount of $6,000. Mr. Neese.
Yes, so we have had a slight problem in the EMS trailer, and the EMS folks have had to move out on a temporary basis and are actually using the Public Works garage as their base at the current time. And though it's working, it's not ideal. And so we've been working at trying to solve the problem in the EMS trailer and our team has been unable to solve it. We're looking at a couple long-term solutions, but this would be hopefully a short-term solution that would get in and solve the current problem and get us back up and running while we look at a more permanent solution for the MS situation. And so this would just be doing that.
Okay, we'll get something.
We'd like to offer a motion to approve the bid from Serpro for remediation and insulation and vapor barrier replacement on the EMS trailer at a cost not to exceed $6,000.
For a second,
Second.
which was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Roberts Lycett to approve item 12.4. Any further questions or discussions from members of the board? Mr. Neese, again, this is reinforcing, this is a temporary solution.
This is a temporary solution. We think there's going to be something bigger that needs to be done, but until we resolve a couple other issues, I'm not prepared to do a more formal
And we
fix.
can't sit and let this continue to fester,
No.
especially since they're out of the building.
Since they're out of the building, I think we need to do something to get them back in, just because they're using basically our public works break room as their area. And so it's causing our guys not to have a really place to go. And it's not that they're not working with it. It's not that they're not trying to work together. It's just awkward.
Okay.
And so feels like a lot of money, but it probably needs to be addressed this way anyhow to figure out and get to the bottom of the issue so we can make sure that no matter what we do in the future, we're covered.
Gotcha. Motion was made second. Any comments from members of the general public regarding this particular item? All right, hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of item 12.4, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 12.5, consider approved removal of 16 hazardous trees, majority of which are ash trees along the Goshen Trail, as recommended by staff and the township arborist at a cost of $15,000. Ryan Tree and Landscaping was the lowest responsible bidder.
Yes, so again, and also just so you know, the Shade Tree Commission has weighed in on this and has agreed that these trees should come down as well, agreeing with the arborist. This kind of continues the issue that we've been having with ash trees along the Goshen Trail. We've taken down quite a few already. Predominantly, these trees, like I said, the majority are ash trees. There are a couple that are, I forget what they're, something hickory or something, that need to come down, but they're in danger of either going out into the road or going into the wires. And so we feel like we need to address those prior to them being an issue. And so we are, or going across the trail, I mean, and so we're working at doing that, and with the idea that I know it's not the best time, but probably in the spring, we would come back and do some plantings of some trees along that area to kind of start reforesting what we've been taking out over the last couple of years.
This is recommended by our arborist and our Shade Tree Commission.
It's recommended by all three, your arborist, your Shade Tree Commission, and as well as your public works staff.
Any questions from Mr. Neese on this item?
I would just say, I think before the work starts, just make sure that information gets out there on the township website, that those three entities weighed in and the safety and other issues that were associated with it.
Good point, Mr. Altieri.
But I will make the motion
For approval.
for approval. Sorry about that.
Is
Yes.
there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Altieri, seconded by Supervisor Partridge to approve item 12.5. Any further questions from members of the board on this item? Any comments from members of the general public? Please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Arthur Erstner. I'm a member of the board of Springton Point Woods. I live 202 Excalibur Drive. This is of interest to me because we've just got done taking down many hazardous trees in our open space. I think we've spent about $50,000 this go round. So I would like to know if you could tell me how many bids the township got and what was the range? I know what the low is. What was the high?
We received at least three because we're required to have at least three. I know that they
Understand.
did that. I do not recall I bid right off the top of my head, and our public works director is not here, but I do believe it was right at about 21,000.
Okay.
I can find out for you and let you know specifically when he gets back, but I'm pretty sure that if I have that right.
Not an emergency, but interesting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item 12.6, discussion and possible approval of contributing to the watering of the hanging baskets in 2022. Public Works will provide a driver 2 days per week. If a committed volunteer is not identified by Newtown Square and Bloom, a part-time individual would need to be budgeted for 10 hours per week. Fairly self-explanatory, but.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Paul from the Business Association, Newtown Square and Bloom, and what other hats he's wearing at the time, has come and made this request. We have looked at it and feel that without detriment to the township, we can probably continue to provide the driver. But if we're providing the driver and the waterer, or the person actually doing the watering, not sure that water is the right word, but made that up, sounded good. But anyway, the person doing the watering, it actually takes about 20 hours a week. It's about 10, it's 5 hours each time they go out to do the watering. So it's a pretty good portion of a day. And so the last couple of years, we've actually, when we haven't had a volunteer, we've actually been paying potentially one of our public works guys who's our skilled folks who are supposed to be doing some of the other things. I think we would need to hire somebody to do this if we can't get a volunteer. And so that's the request that's being made. And that's what I'm here before you tonight.
You looking for just a go ahead, you need a motion or just?
Well, I think that one, if the board is willing to continue to commit Public Works to assisting Newtown Square and Bloom with this project, I just wanted you to be aware of what I believe needs to happen if we're committing to do that.
Well, I think everybody on board agrees that this is a wonderful thing. We all like the baskets hanging. But at the same time, I mean, maybe, I know I'd feel more comfortable if the issue still remains about a committed volunteer, and we're talking, we got 5 months probably before the baskets go up. Why are we taking this action now? Can we table this until Paul and the board of Newtown Square and Bloom can get back to us and say, yes, we've got a volunteer? I mean, I think you can convey to them the board's commitment that we want to do this, and this is not the first time we've asked for this. We've had asked for this before too.
Sure.
I think it's time that before we take action, at least my opinion, that they should come up with the volunteer or come up with the commitment to provide volunteer.
And if it's going to be an additional expense, then you would estimate that and we would approve that expense.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
probably a good idea too.
Yeah, 'cause
Well, and
they're
I just
not-
think-
they're
I'm
their
sorry.
own, nonprofit.
Yeah.
Entity. So I mean, to John's point, it really is a nice, it really does add to the township. But I mean, they're saying that they don't have a volunteer. Well, maybe we can have a volunteer, but no, the township will pay for it. I think, to John's point, and they fundraising events. So
I mean, we're already donating a lot. We're donating a driver, we're donating a piece of equipment,
truck,
we're
yeah.
donating the actual water, which is everybody knows is a free item. So we're making a huge donation to this. I don't think it's too much to ask them to amongst, and as you pointed out, Paul's involved with many different hats. Perhaps all these groups he's involved with can get together and supply so the volunteer for 20 hours a week. I mean, it doesn't have to be a skilled person. It could be semi-skilled, teenager, whatever. I don't know. Retired, anything can vary the dates. I mean, but I know I'd feel more comfortable approving something like this if they had committed to the volunteer.
I'm good with that. I just, if you were going to commit to this, or if you're going to commit to it, I just wanted you to understand, we talk about budget dollars and the commitment about budget dollars. Sometimes when we make these decisions, we are committing time, which inadvertently commits budget dollars. And so I just felt like we can't just say, yes, we're going to do this without some guidance from you as the board. I have a clear direction of how to give Paul direction going forward. And then, but I wanted you to understand what the possibilities were.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Any comments from members of the general public on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. Item 12.7, discussion and action associated with the bids received for recycling. Mr. Neese.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as you know, when we met, I'm drawing a blank whether it was last time or the
November 8th.
time before. Yeah, so the November 8th, I'm just making sure we had the
Or
timing
meeting
right.
Before that, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was the meeting before
It
that.
was a meeting before that last week. October, yes.
And so we had gotten bids back and we'd received a bid back for two different type pickups. One was twice a month and one was every week from Mascara bid. And at that meeting, the board rejected those bids, went back out, and we did a 3-year contract and we received our bids back. The low bid for 3 times a week, I'm sorry, 2 times a month, they would be picking up 3 days a week, was BFI, or I think some people know them as Republic.
Yes.
And they were at $420, $170 for the first year, $434, $876 for the second year, $450, $097 for the third year, for a total of $1,305,144. Mascara, JP Mascara also bid. Their bids came in the first year at $436,572, $444,144 for the second year, and $454,344 for the third year, or a total of $1,335,060.
That's about $200,000 a year more than we're paying right now.
Yeah, and
And
what
then-
are we? Can you tell us exactly?
Currently today, we are paying $228, right?
I was gonna say it's 25.
I think it's somewhere in that range.
So we're talking about twice as much.
It's about twice as much. And then you all had also asked for a separate bidding document that we bid for once a week. Once weekly recycling, and that came in at $579,864 for the first
Who
year.
are you doing first? You doing Republic again?
No, there's only one bid.
Okay.
It's JP Mascara. I'm sorry, I apologize. One bid came in from JP Mascara.
What was that first year number again? I'm sorry.
$579,864.
Okay.
Second year, $589,560. And the final year, $602,652. Or for a total of $1,772,076.00. So
Well, let's talk first.
So I want to share those bid prices with you. I'm not sure that the staff has a great recommendation one way or another which way to go with this. Obviously, it comes down to 2 things. It comes down, one, how committed the board is to going to weekly recycling, and at what point. Do you want to do that immediately, or are you willing to wait? We have looked at some other options for you. Some of them are on a very high level, really quick. One option would be potentially to work with another municipality to do recycling. That would not be something we could do in 2022. We would have to work on that. Another option would be for you to consider whether you want to bring that product in-house. I'm guessing we would probably be pretty close. You know, I've done some quick numbers. Wages, you're looking at probably at least at $270,000, and then we got to have a truck, and you got to get rid of the recycling, and you have to go through that process. So I'm not trying to say it's a cheap process. You know, it's there. So there's some other options there. So you can accept one of these bids and say, we're going to do this for the next 3 years. And if you're going to accept the lowest bid, if you do weekly, you would be accepting JP Mascara, the only bid. If you were accepting the lowest bid for bi-weekly or twice a month, I should say, not bi-weekly, twice a month, you would accept Republic, BFI. Or as you did the last time, you could reject the bids and go back out and potentially do a 1-year bid with the idea that we would try to get something for 1 year and figure out where to go going forward.
I guess a couple of points to clarify. Number one, our current contract ends at the end of this year, correct?
It does.
So we're kind of pressed. I know we started this process a while ago thinking that we could get this done, but apparently the bids have not been coming in now. So that begs a second question. Do we have an idea, a concept as to why the bids are coming in, or are we just getting taken advantage of, I guess?
Well, we anticipated based on bids from 2021 from other, I'm sorry, not 2021, from 2020 from other municipalities, that this was going to go up and be somewhere between $360,000 to $380,000.
That'd be a great number. But we didn't get
If
those
we could have
numbers.
had that number. In talking with both providers, both Mascara and with Republic, both have said the challenge that they're having, and the challenge is predominantly making sure that they have staff. And if you've been paying attention to everything that's going on, it's very hard to go out and just get staff to do some of these types of jobs. I mean, you've got places that can't fill it in restaurants that are making the decision to only provide takeout because they can't figure out how to have staff in there to do the other. You've got hospitals that are short. I mean, it's across the board. And so we've tried to look for a janitor and been unsuccessful in getting a janitor. So, and even get people to apply. So that's part of the challenge.
Do we think this will resolve itself? I mean, if we go out, if we reject and rebid again, of course, we run the risk that they're going to go up again.
Yes, you do.
However, we don't be locking ourselves into 1 year,
Right.
which reduces the pain. Maybe it gets better. Do we think that A, is going to get better, or B, that there is a solution out there that might be able to get this done cheaper if we have another year to consider this?
I mean, is it reasonable to think that working with another municipality, we might be able to do it cheaper? Maybe. You know, there is cost that we have to think about. A truck is at least probably $200,000 to $300,000 to get a trash truck, and I may be off $50,000 or $60,000 one way or the other. The putting somebody on the back of a truck, you know, getting the labor. I'm doing quick numbers. If it's a township that's doing it, depending on which township it is and whether or not they have union and not, you know, those kind of things.
Sure.
You may be locked in for some dollars in that way, plus benefits. And then, of course, you know, there's always the insurance issues of doing those. So to say that we're going to do it for less, I can't sit here and say that today. I can tell you from experience, I was in Phoenixville and we did both recycling and trash. Sometimes we were less and sometimes we were right about the same cost of what the bids were coming in. So that's part of the challenge.
Board, any other questions, comments?
Right. I'd like to put a motion able to a 1 year bid for twice a month. That feasible at this point? We have time.
It will, if we did it, we're prepared to release it tomorrow. We would advertise it. We can't do the advertisement until tomorrow, so we would do the advertisement tomorrow. It would go in the paper on Wednesday. We would be pushing right up to your December 13th bid or your December 13th meeting. And then that would basically give us a very short window of about 2.5 weeks to pull everything together, get the contract signed, and to get the recycler on the schedule, if particularly it's not our current recycle provider, in that if somebody comes back, I know, as I shared with you, BFI or Republic came back and actually said they were going to do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They were doing pickup 3 days a week to make this work, instead of the single day that we have right now, which means we have to educate our community. So we would have to spend a lot of time doing that, probably, work. And we said that's part of the requirement of the recycler, but that's a very short window. And it's holiday season and people pay attention really well to mailings that come out from the township and the, providers on non-holiday times. And so when during holiday, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be a challenge no matter what we do. And so, yes, I would tell you, we would commit to make everything happen that we could possibly do to make it work. And so, but I just know I anticipate some growing pains in the process.
I want to put that motion on the table about tomorrow. 1 year, twice a month, and the other detail around the days that township manager.
And with that motion, and this is more for solicitor, we'd have to reject the current bids, is that correct? So we'd be rejecting the bids and going out for rebid. Is there a second? There's no second. Motion will die, and would somebody like to offer another motion?
I still have a few questions. I thought Ed was going to be asking questions,
We'll keep
and
it
I don't
on the
want
table.
to. I don't want to jump in on that
No,
motion.
no.
Steve, just because I think I might have wrote these down wrong. So the 2 times a week BFI was the lowest.
Yes.
And what was that total amount? Because that's the numbers I clearly wrote down incorrectly.
Let me make sure I have it right here. $1,305,144.
5,144. And then JP Mascaro was 1,300,000.
For twice a week?
Yeah, give me.
I mean, twice a month, I'm sorry. 1 million, it was pretty close. $1,335,060.
Got it.
So basically about a $30,000 difference.
Got it.
And I will just, if I can, I will just say to have both bids that close, I'm guessing it's,
Probably a good number.
if it's probably in the right ballpark.
And the weekly, just to confirm, that was only JP Mascaro, and the total for that is 1,772,076.
Yes.
Okay. The only, look, I don't think it's going to get better. That's just what my concern is. It didn't get better the last time. I don't suspect it's going to get better this time. We took a risk the last time. Clearly it was the wrong risk. It is what it is. But I don't know if it's going to get, and I repeat myself, I don't know if it's going to get any better. And do we risk getting an even higher number than what we did the previous time?
What's driving the price, from what I understand, is risk of not having the labor and increase hours.
That's our understanding. I mean,
And it's a
Look.
pretty significant, price. Hours.
commodities are always commodities, right? And recycling is one of those things that the commodity goes up and down over a period, usually over the contract. We happen to be in a spot where we're actually not getting as much money for the commodities, which means that we're going to be paying more for the service. Don't know that I see that changing anytime soon. I'm not an expert in that field, but that's not something that seems to be changing. But when you look back at when we talked to the 2 providers, actually, when we talked to several of the providers, it wasn't just the 2 of them. One of the big driving forces right now with anybody is trying to get help and maintain that help. And, you know, I don't know this is what they're doing, but I know in other areas, they're paying more than they used to pay for the same thing. And to get people to come to work for them, a lot of times they're having to pay signing bonuses and those kind of things. And I don't know that's the case of our providers, but that's what's going on in the market.
Yep.
And it just increases the cost to do these kind of things.
I
And
hear what
so,
you're saying. I just don't think that that's a condition, a market condition that's going to stay forever. And the other options, I mean, you know, look, no matter what we do, there's no perfect decision. But if we have another municipality who's would be interested, I mean, and to look at that as an option, you know, yeah, they're gonna make some profit margin off this thing too, but I don't think that the profit margin of another municipality is gonna hit the level of private hauler. That's one thing. And then, like you said, we also have the option of looking at bringing it in-house, and when we analyze it, we're going to be looking at that as a long-term option at that point. We're not going to look at it for, you know, you still mentioned there's one-time cost to this thing.
sure.
But, so that's why I think the 1-year bid is, in my opinion, the most, I mean, there's no perfect decision, but the most prudent way to go, and to, you know, continue conversations with those municipalities who possibly do this for us. And I think you said that there is at least some mild interest there, and also to develop, you know, a long-term, you know, estimate of what this thing, of bringing it in-house. That's why I think the 1-year option is, again, it's not a perfect decision, but you know, either that or we're going to be stuck with doubling the price for 3 years. Market conditions might change.
Just to remind everybody again, our contract ends at the end of December. If we don't make a decision, we're going to possibly have to suspend service until such time as we hire somebody. Second thing is, again, just to remind everybody, you know, we all embrace recycling, of course, but at the same time, this is a state mandate. We don't really have a choice. We have to recycle. State says so. They don't say we have to pick up trash, but they say we have to recycle. So we're kind of stuck with this. I understand what Mr. Partridge is saying now. We're going to pay through the nose. Maybe it's better to pay 1 year and see if we can find another solution than to sign on for 3 years. You know, I also understand that maybe things aren't going to get any better. Maybe we're just looking at the tip of the iceberg and think it's inflation next year is going to be 12% instead of 6% this year. So you know, it's a very difficult decision. Yeah. Very distasteful decision to have to make. It's other board members.
Quick, one cool question. So we have private trash pickup. So
Yes.
what, as far as the residents using private haulers for recycling, how would that, is that a possibility, and how would that work?
So my understanding, it is a possibility. We would need to look at it from a legal standpoint, but I do believe that, I mean, I know other second-class townships that do it that way who are about our size, because there are some guidelines that happen based on population, and we have to make sure that we're doing things. It would require that those haulers would report to us the amount of recycling they're picking up within our community. That is, and we do that now for businesses. We do that now for you know, apartments and HOAs that are not having our service in that way. So that is a possibility. What that means to the individual homeowner, it allows the individual homeowner to choose the duration. I do not know what that means to the cost to the individual homeowner. You know, I've heard people say they're paying as little as about, I think about $300 a month. I've heard people say they're paying even less than that. I've heard people say they're paying close to $500. not a month, I'm sorry, a quarter, or a year, maybe it is. I don't, but so I don't know what that would do. I haven't called around finding out what that is, because every homeowner I talk to is a different amount. They've negotiated. It's not necessarily consistent in every spot. You know, it would have to be done, and that you would have to look at what that would be.
These are neighboring communities that do this stuff.
Yeah, we have neighboring communities. My understanding is that's how Willistown does it. That's how Easttown does it. Edgemont, that's how they do it. Edgemont's a little different because I think they fall under the requirement.
Right.
But
Oh, for
those,
now, they keep building enough houses.
well, they're catching up. Yeah, so it's something to think about.
And that way, those that want it, I mean, there's this great debate amongst the town people. Some want it once a week, twice, a month, 3 times a month. If you had your own, and you could negotiate with your hauler exactly how many times a month that you want your recycling picked up.
We're at the
Yeah,
11th, we're at the 11th
Bingo.
hour,
Bingo.
so how do you tell someone, oh, January 1st, you guys got.
You got a really good point
picking
there.
up your
You got a really good
recycling.
point there.
Yeah, I mean,
And everyone looks, and anyone who has been in these meetings or has watched these meetings knows that we've been talking to trash haulers. So then they're gonna be like, well, wait, why now do I have to do this? I mean, we should have had this conversation back in September.
And maybe that's part of Ed's point, is that if we go for a reject and go for 1 year, we have time for another year to explore this in more detail.
Exactly.
Or maybe we don't want that.
And there's no perfect decision. I mean, or it's either, go for the 1 year bid or accept the 1.3 million. I mean, to me, that's our only 2 choices. I mean, I'll throw the 1 year thing back on the table again for consideration for a second. If we don't get that, then I mean, looks like we have, the other decision. So, I mean, let me make that motion again to go for have Steve put out the 1 year bid tomorrow. The motion. So
The motion still exists on the table. Is there a second? While we're mulling over a second, we'll entertain any public comment on this item. Please, again, step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be heard.
Okay. And I don't know what the limit is on resident questions. So Louis Rosenthal, 20 Harrison. I think the town manager mentioned in his comments a little bit earlier that we took a chance last time and it worked out against us. So if you guys are going through the same process that you did last time, it didn't work. So I don't know what a better decision is or a perfect decision. It's recycling, it's hauling and taking it to an approved dump and balancing off labor. It's not quality of recycling or attractiveness of recycling. It's hauling away recycling and taking it to an approved dump. If you want to roll the dice again with less than 6 weeks left in our contract, go right ahead, or make a commitment over 3 years, figure out what you want to do in a year and a half to renegotiate it the next time around, or break it if you have an opportunity to break it and do something better with another township but sounds like there's a history of kicking it down the road. So anyhow, my comment.
Thank you.
Patty Wilson, 4111 Battles Lane. I think I would urge you to try and do a 1 year contract for 2 times a week. And then as you look forward,
2 times a month.
2 times a month, recognizing that at least that's what we have today. And then as you go to look forward, maybe you would consider combining this with the trash contract, because one of the many complaints we're hearing in the township, or I've seen, is how many trash trucks are going through our neighborhoods at this point. So if you could get one contract that was both recycling and trash, perhaps we would get some benefit from that from a cost standpoint. We'd reduce our traffic, and you could probably convince people to pay a little more here, because right now, yes, we all are paying somewhere in the neighborhood of, we pay $90 a quarter for 1 time a week trash. A lot of people are 2 times a week. So our bill on an annual basis is almost $400. If you could get to do trash and recycling at the same time, I'll be glad to pay you that, because that will mean there are less trucks in my neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. You're gonna try to talk again, aren't you?
Just respectfully, I'm Al DeGenero with JP Mascara and Sons. I'm not going to presuppose or suggest how
Sir,
you
before
should.
you talk, just understand, number one, this is for residents only and by law.
I understand.
We're not thought, now, sit down. Understand too, that under the public bidding law, we can't base any decision that we make on accepting or rejecting on anything that you say right now. Your opportunity to do that was in your number, and your opportunity to do that was with the manager before we received bids. Okay, so we are treading on very thin ice here to get ourselves in deep trouble because this is very irregular. So I'll let you talk with the provision you answer my question at the end of your talk.
I appreciate that. And I've been
Go
doing
ahead.
this for 30 years with Mascara, and I'm not going to violate any public bidding laws. Just going to add a couple of factors that your township manager I gave you. He is correct to some extent that the labor is an issue in our industry. But I have to tell you, and you should see this on your everyday personal situations and work as well as your township. Fuel continues to go up. Insurance continues to go up. Trucks, respectfully, they're not $300,000. They're closer to $500,000. It takes a year now to get a truck. The supply line, everything is impacting the cost that you're seeing. You know your residents, you know what you want to do. I just want to suggest to you that the situation is not getting better, no matter what circumstance you do in terms of this industry. It's a tough industry right now, and costs continue to rise for a lot of reasons, many of them you know. And that's all I wanted to say. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the opportunity we've had to serve your community.
Now, okay, based on your comments of things going up, are they going up monthly? I'm
Look.
just looking at the numbers here, and hear me out. I let you talk, so let me talk
Sure.
now. Your bid in the second round for the same service went up $130,000. And I'm offended by that. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Now, if you want to tell me that gas, personnel insurance, and truck costs went up $130,000 in a month, great, but I feel like I'm being used, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, okay? So, go ahead.
I filled my tank up today. It cost more than it was last week. It cost more than it was 2 weeks. Our insurance companies are on an annual renewal. Many of them are the calendar year. I don't know what our competitors are, but I know between the time the first bid went off and our second bid went off, we got hit with insurance increases. We've had to pay, you're correct, there's a labor problem. It's industry wide. And the way you solve that is you either lose your business or you pay your employees more. It's costing more to get these people to show up. And once you start paying them more, you can't pay them less. So all these continue to affect our industry. And respectfully, they're not going down. And it wasn't a chance for us to say, we're going to add $130,000 to our price.
But you did.
I mean,
So I'm just saying, you
in
did.
terms of a profit. No, I mean, respectfully, I'm sitting where you are. I can understand your position, but mind you, in the old days, you might have got 4 or 5 bids. This industry is getting tougher and tougher. And there's less and less companies that can weather the storm and participate. Think about it. It takes a year to get a new truck. From the time you want a truck and put your order in, it takes a year. Now we're seeing parts for our trucks, difficulty in getting them. And actually, the recycling market, that's probably about the only thing that hasn't gotten worse since your last bid. The recycling market, because people are at home and ordering things, the supply is starting to get close to what, I'm sorry, the demand is starting to get close to what the supply is.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Hey, go ahead.
Nathan Glazer, 3538 Cayley Road. I've listened to the issues and all, and I think a one-year contract is naive and is really ignoring the reality of what are secular trends in the economy and secular trends among homeowners. The last thing I want to do as a homeowner is have to negotiate individually with some vendor for recycling, a business of which I know nothing. And the reason why group things are generally cheaper than individual things like group health insurance and group life insurance is because the provider does better when they're dealing with a lot of people under one rubric, one contract, than a host of separate. So I think
residents, I think, are neither equipped nor really eager to start negotiating over something like this. This is why we have government, to deal with things that we are incapable or unprepared to do. I think the issues of the increase in cost are a secular trend. It's not just a bump in the road. I think we're seeing changes in consumption, the value of recyclables. So yeah, 3 years is painful. I don't like to hear it. Nobody does. But I think a one-year contract is going to put us back in the exact same conversation in 9 or 10 months, and nothing will have changed in the basic underlying economic business environment of moving recycling around. I don't mind if the township wants to get into it. That wouldn't bother me in the least, but I think I still want it centrally handled by competent people and not some 10,000 basically ignorant people thinking they know more about the industry, which they don't, and then making decisions accordingly. I also think, to disagree with the gentleman, there is more to recycling than just picking it up. I've had recycling where it all gets in the truck. I've had recycling where some of it gets in the truck and where a lot less gets in. Because there is a right and wrong way to do this. There are people who do it well. There are people who don't do it well. Hopefully, when we make our bid choices, we're looking beyond the dollar and saying there are people who are better at this than others. Because that's true in every industry. There's good and there's not so good, and there's the people you don't want to use. So I would strongly suggest that, yeah, bite the bullet. 3 year, it's going to cost us more money, but at least we have 3 years of certainty. And then, yeah, I think it would be smart to say, talk to the adjacent municipalities. Is somebody interested in launching some kind of cooperative? What would it cost? And, if we may have to break a contract, that might be worth doing if the numbers come back. But I don't think with the end of the year coming, this is really not the time to be guessing our way through. Follow a conventional path, sign it, so we all can move on and know that tomorrow somebody's going to be there to make a pickup.
Thank you, Mr. Glazer. And just to correct one thing you said, by law, we're not allowed to consider anything else but the numbers. That's how the state law works.
There are quality elements to the service.
Mr. Glazer, I probably welcome the opportunity to select on other things other than dollars and cents, but state law requires us to do dollars and cents only. So that's something that maybe we can all work together to get state law changed. Any other members of the public have anything to comment on this particular issue? Our board, it's back to us. We have one motion on the table that has not had a second. If we're not going to second it, then somebody needs to offer an alternative motion. Can't sit here and do nothing.
Two choices.
We can reject the 1 year, we can reject, I don't know, or we can accept one of the bids in one of the services, whether it's the.
Mr. Chairman, I just so you know, you actually have a third choice, and I'm not sure I think it's a great choice, but I'll throw it out there to you. And Solicitor reminded me, you have a 60-day window to accept these bids. If you're not prepared from the time of
From the opening.
From the opening of the bids. So you could theoretically, if you wanted to not make a decision until the 13th.
But we can't
we
put out another RFP, another
You-
request for
if-
bids until we reject these.
No, yeah, you either, if your thoughts are to go out for another RFP, we need
Or
that
bid.
direct, or another.
We need to reject it.
You need to reject these tonight, and then we need to take that stand. If you are in a position where you're not ready to make a final decision of whether you want to go twice a month or once a week, you potentially could hold the bids and do that.
Yeah, but that pushes the issue out to our next public meeting on the 13th. And
Yeah, it's
if we were somehow ready to
I'm-
reject that one, now we're really out of time.
Well,
We are gonna see this.
I'm not saying you should do it. I'm just saying
Right.
you do have that as an option, and we were just talking about that over here, and I just want to make sure you know what your options are.
I think we understand
I
that.
think diesel fuel alone is twice as much. Labor, everybody knows, get anybody to work. Get somebody, you're lucky they come. Materials, gentleman's right, you can't get vehicles. any vehicle. Go to every dealer down the street. here. There's
Well,
there's
there are no
cars
vehicles.
on
We
the
know
lot.
how
I
long
mean,
it took to get a dump
I
truck,
mean,
so.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't see it getting better until the ideas that are running the country now change. That's not for another 3 years. So in my opinion, I think the 3-year contract, at least, yeah, nobody's happy with it. Nobody's happy with the amount of money. But I don't see us bidding in 1 year and getting a better number. I see that number going up. And then we're gonna be in the same boat again next year at this time. And my opinion, at least we're locked in.
Well, Mike, let me throw this at you though. The 1 year, to talk to another municipality who maybe is also struggling.
But that's
So they make a profit off of us and they can continue in the business themselves and add more money to their recycling, but then we don't pay double. Maybe we pay 1.5 times what we're paying
You're
now.
gambling again, because
Mhm.
we just gambled.
Yeah,
and the
we
contract
lost.
went up,
Yeah.
and we lost.
Oh, it is.
And in my opinion, we can start having those conversations next year, and that might take a year or two to complete anyway, because they might have the same problem that these other people are experiencing. I mean, we've tried to hire people, we can't hire people here.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got the same problem. It just doesn't matter what industry you're in. Nobody can find help. Everybody's help went somewhere in COVID and didn't come back.
Yeah, and don't get
I'm
me
just
wrong.
telling you, every day I'm dealing with this.
I don't think the 1 year decision, is
I'm just
a great
saying.
decision, believe me. And,
No,
if
I'm
somebody
just-
puts up the other motion for the 3 years,
I'm just
I mean,
saying, we lock it in. Nobody's happy with the number, but at least we're locking in for 3 years. In the meantime, we can talk to other people. We can do whatever we want to do. But I don't see fuel coming down. I don't see costs coming down. And then as the man said, he's right. If you pay somebody X dollars and you have to pay them now X plus $5, they're not going to go back and take X dollars a year or two from now. This is not going to happen. I just don't see it.
I think it's fair to say that Ed's motion's dead, right?
Yeah, the chair has said.
Yeah.
Motion
It's
is
a
dead.
motion. I wouldn't
There's
call
no
it a-
second.
That's right.
It's a motion.
A motion.
The question becomes then, if we're not going to reject and we're going to accept these, are we accepting the twice a month or the weekly collection? There's only one bidder for weekly.
I'd like to make the motion. We accept the 5-monthly.
Twice a month. So your motion is to accept the bid of Republic Services or a 3-year bid.
Whatever the low bidder is, and I
Yeah.
guess that's,
1,305. I'll second that motion.
I mean,
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion was made and seconded to accept the bid for twice a month services from Republic in the amount of $1,305,144 for the 3 years. Yes, we do it. Comments?
Yeah, I mean, look, I obviously was the one, I thought that we had a good amount the last time. As I essentially voted to do that, but I think we've beaten the horse that these are the numbers, they're not changing. And so I obviously was a big proponent of the, weekly, but it just fell away. It fell, and I'll keep fighting it. Keep fighting the good fight here.
we have 3 years to fix that.
I got 3 years to fix that.
We're in the business ourselves.
Yeah.
All right.
So reluctantly, I'm voting yes is what I'm getting
Well, I
at.
haven't called for one, but okay, thank you. Motion was made and seconded to accept the low bid for the 2 times a month from Republic. Any no further questions? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That hurt. Oh,
What it is, right?
Mr. Neese heard the motion, right? You understood what we just approved, right?
I didn't, but I'm sure I'll get caught up.
Republic twice a month.
Okay.
All right. That was fun. Next on the agenda. Yeah, you guys, sorry. Yeah, after that, now you're gonna come up. Oh, man.
I usually follow trash.
Consider,
It's recycling.
I'm sorry, recycling.
we are moving on to old business. This is from last month. We're considering approving the renderings of the Elder Preserve Phase 2 townhomes. And it's noted here that we're talking, mainly about front porches and rooftop decks. So,
Yes. Good
Mr.
evening.
Edelman, please.
Greg Edelman here on behalf of Rockwell as well as Equus. I believe Christy Flynn from Rockwell was here last meeting and we were talking about some renderings and the front porches and that the front porches were not in a usable depth. Subsequent to the discussions from the last meeting, Rockwell put together some different iterations. And I think what's shown on the screen right now is what the traditional models, there's traditional and modern, the traditional have the porches, would look like if they were 6-foot porches, 6-foot deep porches along all of the townhomes. The issue with this is that when you look at them from a cross-sectional view, the roof lines start to tie together because, and I don't have a pointer here, but you can see there's only about a 2-foot offset between the porches. So it really, I think, takes away from the character of what was approved by this board in terms of the elevations that were shown in March, I believe, of 2020 as part of the tentative plan and final plan approval. What we think is a better layout is to continue to use the staggered model of porch and then smaller alcove. But what was originally shown was only 2 feet deep. We'd like to keep the exterior, the end and the middle, as what's shown here is 6 feet. Okay, so you have 10 feet from the door and the 6-foot covered porch. So it's a fully usable porch. And then just have 6 feet at the actual center of the entrance. And Steve, I think Christy sent you an email at 6 o'clock today that probably has a better graphic showing what we're talking about here. It would be in your inbox. So we think that gives a better streetscape view, addresses the issue from the board that there wasn't a usable porch. All you were seeing was a 2-foot, basically you call it a fake porch in the front. And instead now you push it all the way out 6 feet so that you actually have usable. If you scroll up to the top. Oh, is that the old one still? That's the old one. Yeah, it was an email that Christy sent to your inbox, Steve.
I'm looking for it right now.
Okay, it's 6:11 p.m.
Finally.
Well, we were going back and forth on what to do. And when we put together the renderings of this from the side profile and the front profile, it changes the look of what I think this board approved. And it really, I don't think was keeping him with what we were looking at, trying to accomplish.
Give me a minute.
Sure.
You also added that. Horrible.
That's it.
I think that was a private email to you, John. Yeah.
Okay, so I have
From
a
Christy.
bunch of attachments. Which one do I
Yes.
want to pull up?
If you just pull up the first one.
Okay. I have it. So Steve, you're going to have to
While they're doing
take
that,
it
so
to computer
73
one.
units total,
73 total units. 63, sorry,
63 total?
63.
So, yeah, so just how many traditional versus how many modern?
Also, diagram.
With the red box.
Yep.
But is that a minimum number of traditional units with porches? Like, that's not gonna, that's not flexible. Sure. So you could do more porches, but not less porches, right?
18 full-length porches on the traditional models.
Yes, but it would.
2, 4, 6, 8,
It doesn't matter.
10, 12, right, 18. Rich, 18
18.
of the traditional.
What's the
Full length.
legal agreement? Because that's been part of the conversation. But it looks like you don't want to read it.
So you're doing percentages.
I was actually just, yeah, even just on that. I thought it was 7.
Yeah, we lost that.
Yeah.
Down to 63. Yes. 73, then down to 70, then down to 60.
Back 2 feet. You staggered 63.
There we go. One, you can make it full size, but and if you click on the right, there we go.
Where do I click here?
No, click the arrow just so you get full screen.
Yeah, it's not doing it. I've been
Oh, it's
doing
not?
that. Oh, there it is.
Perfect.
I did
All
a
right,
couple-
so, oh, we lost Leonard. So what we have on the screen here, the areas shown in yellow, you can see are dimensioned. Those are the front porches. You can see that the middle and the two ends on the traditional elevations have had their porch depth increased from 2 feet to 6 feet, and from the entrance to the stairs or steps, 10 feet. And then in the middle, they've also been bumped out, so now you have 6 feet there as well. That leaves you with a usable yard of about 5.5 feet for the full porches, and I believe it's about 14 feet or so on the extended entrances. We think this creates the better offset and streetscape.
So we're going back to the just a cover, not a porch on those two units.
Covered entry, except it's extended to 6 feet. I don't think it was that long before, or that depth before.
So you're still gonna have the stucco go all the way to the floor, to the ground, with no break. So that window is still gonna just go all the way down to the ground. I mean, the stucco.
If
in
we
that
roll
middle.
to the,
It's not stucco, it's material, but yes.
Okay. That's not what we agreed to, but okay.
well, if we can scroll down to the
No.
elevations, hold on, Tina, if we can scroll down to the elevations, it's another one of the attachments, just so we can point out.
I know, that's.
The alternative of putting porches 6 feet out on every model, we don't think works. Because then when you have the roof lines, it doesn't look good. The roof lines all come real close to each other. You're almost talking about,
TA5.
you're talking at that point of not having what we had originally proposed and approved.
That one?
I like this.
So, right, so the ones that don't have the porches are in the middle.
Right.
So you're talking about this that you have a problem with, Tina? And what would you rather see there?
We had conversations about it, that it would be a porch.
Well, so Tina, that's what we did do. In the first slide, we showed the porch coming out, and making it a usable porch. The issue you come up with is when you start putting a full 6-foot deep porch there, every one of those porch roof lines, they're going to tie together with only 2 foot offset. So when you look down the streetscape, you're just going to see a row of porches. So we're trying to come up with a way to create the offset again. You can't reduce the porch to 4 feet in depth because then it's not usable. We had 2 feet porches before. So we're left with a double edge there. We did show that. That's what was shown before. And then when we put together that rendering, it doesn't look right. The rendering that shows.
Do you have a copy of that rendering that's showing this portion
Yes.
that you're talking about right now?
That's in the, it should be actually on.
If you go back to your presentation, click off me and go back to the main computer. And now go back and pull up that one. There you go.
Rich, you have it.
I can email it to you if you don't have.
Yeah, if you can. That's not it. That's not it.
That is it,
That's not what conveys what I'm talking about.
Which one do you want?
Rich has it. In order to answer Leonard's question and to show what it looks like when you put all the porches together.
I got it. Sending it now, Steve. You just want to recuse. Try to send it there.
At least you go to my email.
How many, while they're doing that?
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if you don't want to discuss this, you don't have to, but how many have you sold so far? Or how many are under contract, I should say? Again, if you don't want to provide that, you don't have to. I'm just asking.
I think we're in the 6-7 range.
6 or 7 are under contract? Out of how many again?
63.
10%.
So which one?
Now, not all of those could be affected by this discussion, because some of those are the other type of elevation, modern elevation.
Got it.
Some of those are happening, some will not.
So out of those 6 or 7, not all of them are impacted
Okay, I
by
need you to
what would
switch back.
potentially happen tonight.
I don't know.
Well,
We're finding out.
certainly,
There it is. That's it.
we would want the board to give direction to your professionals going from its modern elevations as well, which I think past meeting, we all said we like those, we're happy.
But to go back to my question, of those 6 or 7, and I know there's multiple conversations, so real quick, of those 6 or 7 that have been, that are under contract, how many of them would be impacted with this potential change? Do you have that
I
information?
don't have it.
Okay.
All right, so this is what we're talking about. This is what happens, Tina, this is what we were talking about when we added the porches to the middle units. This is the type of
So
streetscape. you'll see.
why are they out if the middle units are set back? I didn't say to come all the way out to the other porch, it would be set back a little.
2 feet.
Right, but you're showing it as though it's all.
No, we're not. And that's the 2 feet setback. In fact, we have 5 different iterations of this showing the 2-foot setback. What we're saying is that it's not enough of a setback to break up the mass of the building and the roof lines.
What if you made the middle units higher, put the roof up higher?
We're not
And you
changing.
break
roof-
it up, you break up the linear.
Then you're changing you're saying move it up closer to the windows on the second floor level. I mean, that just changes the whole
But
architecture.
you guys just,
Tina, we're not.
we're not gonna approve any more renderings like this unless we have full plans, because this conceptual stuff is problematic and you've pushed back on us.
Tina, we're
That's all I'm
not,
gonna say.
Tina, we're not pushing back.
You
We're-
are.
No,
We've
we're
had
not.
conversations and you showed us plans. You showed us this. Now you come in public after you showed me this, which is I thought what we were gonna do, and you're standing there saying you're not gonna do it now.
Tina, I'm not saying I'm not going to do anything. I'm saying to the board what we're looking at and having the conversation. We have not had a discussion, you or I, or anybody from Rockwell or Equus about this roof line and what this happens. Our discussions were provide the front porch on all the
Right.
units. And that's what we did. And when we did it, we were asked to then also later on supply what the roof line looks like. And when we supply what the roof line looks like, we were all looking at it saying, this isn't the look that was approved by this board in March, and it's not the look that any of us want. So
Yeah, the
I'm
look
now
that was
asking the
approved
board.
In March was with the one door up against this side and the way that it was a different layout. The way that the door was shown was the door is where the window is. So then you had the window between, you had the door, you had a window between another unit, and then you had another front door, and it looked like it was a front porch that was usable, serviceable, attractive. I don't know how Lister has those front porches on their middle piece that's got the promenade. I don't know what part of Lister that is. They have the front porches. I don't know why this can't be accomplished here.
But we're showing you what it would look like if it is accomplished.
Let me ask this question.
Hold on. Ed,
Okay.
No. Oh, what do you say? You're gonna say you're
yeah,
refusing?
let him
Okay.
go.
Okay, I already announced last meeting, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. As I have a direct conflict of interest, and I may actually step up to and speak as a resident. I'm kind of forced to do that, so I'm gonna in the audience.
Okay. You'll come back later.
Let me ask you this question.
Sure.
And there's no way of saying this without coming off as sounding rude, but clearly there was direction and conversation that was given from Tina and Mike. Is this really the best foot forward, or are you just doing the bare minimum so that you show something that you all don't like so that you get kind
That's
of come in
right.
here? And I get it, it's a rude question.
It is
to
a
ask.
rude question, and
It
the
is.
answer is no.
But you have to understand what the perception is from this board, right? How they're feeling right now, or how we're feeling right now, I should say.
Leonard, I've been in front of this board for years.
Yeah.
I'm not here putting forward a half-assed job. Okay, I'm putting forward something that I'm presenting to this board that not just my clients, but others who just saw this have said, we're not sure this is where everybody wants to go. So that's why I'm here having this discussion. We had other discussions about adding the porches. That's what we did. That's what's been presented here. You have 6-foot porches on all of these units. And when we did that, we then show a roof line. Now, nobody said, well, let's make the roof lines to look as ugly as possible. They all said, put the roof lines in, and what's our offset? Okay, so that's the problem we're presenting back to this board based upon the guidance that we received.
But you get the question that I'm asking. I mean, you can see how, you can see, and look, you're a great attorney. I have nothing but respect for you. So I know you have to represent your client's interests. But the perception of the board is that they asked for something, and instead of modifying it to look nice, you come in here and say, this is what it's gonna look like. Take it or leave it. We think it's ugly and it's not gonna work.
I never said take it or leave it.
You're right, you didn't. And I will rescind that.
I come here and I say, here's the problem that we're now faced with. And I'm putting it back to the board because we did follow the board's direction, okay? And before we just say, hey, screw it, we'll do whatever the board wants and we'll put this thing out there. And then you're gonna come back and say, wow, this looks really ugly. Because we have real professionals here that are also in this department. Like, I analogize it to what happened with the original design of the apartments at Ellis. Okay, originally, when we went through the process, there was shown to be a French chateau.
You guys want to hear this? Sorry, Greg.
Thank you, appreciate it. The original architecture, if you remember, for the apartments was a French chateau traditional design that was approved. We then came back in with modern design and changed it. If we had just stayed, you would have had a completely different design. We think the design that's there now works. We're going through the same process here. Tina, we're not sticking it to the board or giving an ultimatum
I didn't say that.
or pushing back. I'm pointing out to this board that when we followed your direction and we came up, this is what happened.
But how come you didn't show us the original things in 3D, but you show this in 3D? The other ones you couldn't read. When Christy came in, no offense, she brought in a drawing that was just, it was hard to read. So I don't understand how come you couldn't bring in a 3D of that in addition to this to show us that difference.
So Tina, I'm not sure that Christy knew what she was supposed to bring in at the last meeting.
Well, you know.
So we're here now with what we have, and I'm trying to work through those issues.
Well, how about will approve, I mean, I'll put this out there. We agree on the modern, right?
Okay.
Maybe believe me, I have other things, we all have other things to do than to argue about these front porches. So why don't we, if everyone else agrees, we release the modern and we continue on this. And I'd like to see your plan in 3D, and I want to see them, the board, I think, needs to see them in 3D. So
Which
that we
plan
can
are you talking about? The original plan, not just this one?
The one that Christy brought in.
The
original
original plan had trees in front of every unit except for the N2 units. That's the problem with this whole picture. Couldn't see. I interpret there's a porch there. She interprets there's a porch there. Maybe you guys don't. So that's the problem. And granted, it's very subjective. You guys see no porch, we see a porch. So the conversation, again, what I remember is you had 3 of the 5 of us approve this. The 2 people were very adamant they wanted porches. And they were very adamant they weren't happy with these homes. So my point is, I think Tina's idea is a good idea. Get you guys moving on the modern units and provide some additional information for us to review and get going. And then you start moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the board, the
2 weeks.
majority of the board has said we're okay with the modern looks. I don't know that we need to muddy the decision with that.
That's the other one, right? This is the traditional. We're talking
This is
about-
traditional.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
It's all
so
about-
there
got it.
you got 4 now. So we're okay with
With the provision that there's going to be no more modern than what's depicted on that plan. that
Correct.
we're given with the
right. You're not going to change the modern curriculum, whatever we approved or
between
whatever is
traditional modern,
depicted.
there can be no more modern than was
She
already
gives us a
presented.
plan. She says she's not changing.
Right. So we're not going to change that. We're going to keep the number of modern that we have there now, and I think we're okay with that. This drawing that you're showing us here now, that's not your intention. That's not what you're presenting tonight, is it?
Well, no, so that was what we presented based upon extending all of the fronts to have usable porches of 6
So that's
feet
what
depth.
you are offering to us right now.
No, they don't want to
They
build
don't
that.
want
You don't want to build it, but
It's what the board asked us to do. So that's what we're showing. We're telling you, we
Steve,
think
can you
there's
make
an
that
issue
bigger?
with it.
he's working on the computer.
Yeah, they're getting smaller. They're now.
That's fine too.
The heat-
It's in shock.
Don't.
I got it. It's fine. I get it. I get it. Look, I hear
Is
you.
there's a lot of confusion, I think, going on. I mean, yes, a visual is important, but I like things in a table of charts. Is there any way that you could compare what we approved and to what you're looking for now, bullet point by bullet point.
So the issue you find is that you can compare those on a two-dimensional plane with the floor plans, which is what we did. So that's why you saw a
That
different
doesn't
look,
work
but
out.
that doesn't help you visualize going up what it looks like. So we had the renderings from what was approved, and, Rockwell showed you their renderings, but you couldn't see the porches as being clearly defined on either of those renderings. You can see porches, but you don't know whether they're 2 feet deep, 4 feet deep, 6 feet deep, usable, not usable, right? So that's where the two-dimensional plans, John, come in like in a tabular form.
Yeah.
So that's what we now show. And then when we showed the 6 foot on the end units and the center unit, but just the entranceway, the covered entranceway on the middle ones, the response we got was add porches on the middle ones. So we added the porches on the middle ones, but then that changes how it looks from the street because you're covering it. And that's where we are at this point.
We, committee of two, going to schedule another meeting with respect to the traditional.
Let me ask you a different question. What is it that the board would be looking for us to do now that we've shown you what it looks like when you add the 6 foot porches on all of them, knowing that the roof lines start to tie
I want
together?
to see a 3D of what you want to do. I want to see that same kind of detail that you showed on the things that you
Okay.
don't want to do. I'd like to see it on what you want to do, because
Okay.
you can't, the other way, it's flat, you can't read the plan.
Correct.
And I want dimensions on things.
Okay.
I've always asked for dimensions on this whole project.
Right. I think the two-dimensional ones had dimensions, but you can't
We want
tell
to-
really what they correspond to.
If
because
we're
of
going to
the angles.
compare apples to apples,
Mhm.
just building on what Tina says, a 3D of what we originally approved, with that nice 3D of what you don't want to build, it shows all the porches, with this 3D of what you do want to build, all in the same scale, all with dimensions, then we could sit there and look and go, okay, maybe we're idiots and maybe we'll take what you originally proposed. I don't
That's
know.
fine. I understand that.
But there's still this disconnect. And I don't want to hold you guys up, but, and that's why I think we're happy to move ahead with the modern, but
Right.
there's still this disconnect. I think
So we'll come back. Before we come back, we'll put together the same type of 3D, and we have 4 or 5 different angles. We had straight on, we
do
had
the same thing
side.
for all the options so that we can.
We'll do it for the other, but it'll have the 6 foot porches on the ends and in the middle, and then the covered entrances. We'll show you that same 3D type rendering so that you can see how that offset really works with that as opposed to what's being shown here.
Show us what we originally approved, show us what you want, and include that other drawing that you sent us
And then
tonight that
we'll
apparently
crowd
don't want to
this
build. Do them all on the same scale. Because then we can take what we approve and we can make it part of the resolution, and we all know exactly what we approved, and there's none of this question about you approved this. We got it, it's there, it's right there, we all can look at a picture and go, this is what we approved.
Okay.
Everybody think that's an idea?
Yeah, so that's fine.
They're fine. I still think the notch is better, 4x4 notch, but
What's the 4x4 notch?
taking a covered entryway and making it a porch and not going across the whole front. Taking 4 foot by 4 foot and unused or unfinished space. And then you have a porch, it's a small porch, but it's not a covered entryway. You can put 2 chairs there. That's what I thought would be a reasonable solution. This here, I get it, you don't like it because it's kind of like an old western town.
Or a row home
front.
neighborhood in Philly, right?
Or a row home neighborhood. in
But
Philly.
they
I
said
think
it
that's-
during that when they came
My
in.
wife's
they
in a
said
row
we're-
home neighborhood in Philly.
Well, no, but.
Hey, my first house is
Again,
in
some
Rome.
I'm
people
just
like
saying,
that
it's not
look,
something you
some
wanna say in a
people
public
don't.
meeting.
I'm just stating,
My kids grew up in Rome.
I'm just stating that I think the notch would be better to widen the covered entry, right? It would give them a little bit what they want and give us a little bit what we want. I thought it was a happy compromise. But again, that was just my idea.
So in those other units that Mike's talking about, that's just the cover. How wide is that cover? How big is your step?
We can go
How
back
big
to
is your
the
step?
graphics. I know, Steve, Rich.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
You have,
I do.
I don't know, I don't have a dimension. I don't know where the.
If we
drawing-
can put the drawings back
You
up.
can put the drawing back up where what they want.
The one that was in Christie's email with the green and yellow is probably the first one attached to the email from this evening at 6 o'clock.
thing, it would give us a porch, small porch. It would give them most of the look they want. It would be, I think it would be a compromise. But again,
As opposed to a full
I'm just
covered
throwing it out
porch.
there. I'm just throwing it
As
out there.
opposed to a
Like,
full
I'm not,
covered porch.
Mike, it sounds like a good compromise.
So
what's the width on that?
it's 9 feet.
Right, so if you took this and notched it 4 feet each way, finished space, you get a wider porch, you put 2 chairs there, and then it's called a porch. It's not a covered entryway. That's a covered entryway. That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
what I'd just like to point out is that we are offering people who care about porches, the opportunity to purchase porches. And when we start to make these changes that sound reasonable, take 4 feet out and move it over here, it has ripple effects through all of the architecture, right? Now the lines get offset for the building above. Now now we need to figure out how the posts are going to work, because a span of 13 feet is not attractive with only 2 posts. Now we've got to add another post. It has ripple effects to say, let's just.
But to be fair, right, to be fair, yes, it has ripple effects. I understand that. But it's something you all can manage.
Well, but what I'm saying is the ripple effects may or may not be beneficial. But like we just saw when we added front porches to everything, the unintended consequence of that was the building was no longer as good looking, right? And so when we start to try to, if we're letting the porches drive the entire facade, the 4-foot notch drive the entire facade of the building, we're not necessarily ending up with the most attractive building. That, which is the goal. And for those people that wish to have a porch, there are porches available to purchase.
But that wasn't what we approved. We approved porches.
So let me,
And we also approved decks that you can't use right now. So there's no outside area except for the roof deck. You showed decks off the back of the garage as well. So to be fair, you did make changes from what we did approve.
So when we go back to where Mike was talking about as a compromise.
It's an idea. I'm just throwing it out there. I've seen a million places like that, and it gives you, so you don't have a linear look. You guys don't like the linear look. You see, look down there, you see same roof line, the whole, every unit. Well, this would keep you back like you are. It would be a 4-foot notch.
So you're saying instead of,
Is that what we've shown there?
because we've got 6-foot depth and about, was it 9 feet width?
Whatever this is, I don't, there's no dimensions here.
Well, the 6 feet depth, it's on the next plan.
Saying, take a notch. Whatever this is now, I don't know if you made this wider. I don't know what, last week it looked like it was a 4-foot by 4-foot notch. You have a wider patio, covered, it wouldn't be a covered porch anymore, or covered entryway, being a small porch. Granted, it's a very small porch.
You want to make that yellow box bigger.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was trying to
And
ask.
that
was
way, it's sort of a compromise, in my opinion, that, okay, they don't like the linear look.
Right.
They just showed us that they don't like it. You get a little notch. And again, I don't know that you have to solve this. You can you could look at this 2 or 3 different ways in the next few weeks. In the meantime, you can submit your plans for the modern ones and start going through the process. And in 2 weeks of Thanksgiving, I don't think it's going to hurt you. That's my opinion.
I'm just trying to figure out what those options are, Mike, so we can put something
Well,
together so everyone can
I
see.
think Tina's option is one you guys don't like. So I'm trying to accommodate Tina and I'm trying to accommodate you. And I thought that was a solution. But again, I'm not the architect of this project, but going from whatever to whatever, minimus, in my opinion.
Right, so you're just saying extend it outside.
Make it a porch, a covered porch versus a covered entryway. That's all.
But not a 6-foot depth one.
No, whatever it is, just you put 2 chairs there. Rich, isn't that what we talked about? And again, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I'm saying that's an idea where it would solve your linear problem. It would solve Tina's problem that we have a porch. Now, granted, it's a compromise.
Understood.
But again, I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
You've made that clear. Board hasn't necessarily.
Yeah, that's just me throwing out an opinion of things I see when I go around.
Mr. Roberts, your primary, I understand, porch, no porch.
Right.
But primary,
It was not to be a big porch. It was to be a place that someone could sit, to
That's what I was gonna
chairs,
ask.
not a stoop.
Usability is important, not just
Right.
appearance. It's not the.
I don't care that it's as big as the other porches. In fact,
That's.
yeah, that wasn't the point of it.
I think Mr. Russo's solution
I'm just trying to
is
help.
finding favor with the board there.
I'm just trying to help.
I understand. I mean, I just want to make sure I have a grasp and concept of what the board is talking about so we can actually put together something to look at.
And I don't know if that plan's the plan you went back to from last time. Again, I don't know if you.
No, this
modified
is
it.
different because this
It's a
is the
little
depth on
deeper.
the porches here are bigger. Whereas when you saw the elevation originally, that only showed like 2-foot porches in the front here. So it didn't have.
But I think
there.
the ones you have on the wide, the three, is good. But
Right.
again, I think the compromise would be just so you could put 2 chairs there, and I think you widen it by 6 square feet, I think you get that accomplished. And that's,
Okay, like a bistro set type thing or something along those lines.
just like you sit there and have coffee.
An
and-
entrance.
The unit
You know,
is
Yeah.
like a bigger
the unit is
entrance.
24 feet wide.
That's all.
The covered porch,
I can't
Well,
see, there's no
the co-
dimension.
it's 20, I have an elevation that I'm.
It's a different, as I was gonna say, it's on a different plan. Go ahead.
This.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then
So
the other
it's-
one,
so
if you
the-
want to
the
scroll
Front
down.
of the house is. Right, it's a 9 foot, or is that 4 foot? it's 20 feet wide house, right?
I
24
thought it was
foot.
6 feet. I thought last week we were talking.
It's 20, yeah, it's 24 feet wide,
Mhm.
the unit itself.
Some dimensions on the plans.
The covered porch is this way.
Should be 9 feet wide.
It says 9, right? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, if you just keep going down there so the board can see it. It's attached to the
This is,
email.
this is a separate.
It's a separate attachment. Look at the one Rich has on his screen.
Yeah. This is, I can forward it to you. It's the second one. I'm gonna forward this to you right now. Second one.
It's not all the same. Let's start right on the plan. Give us.
Yeah, I mean,
It's only 2
it's not that
units.
change drawings that
So I mean, we want to resolve this.
Sure.
Right? So if you can at least show us apples and apples, as
Mhm.
opposed to apples and oranges,
Mhm.
the way that you show the plan that you want,
Right.
show us the plan that we're asking for.
Okay.
Same kind of view.
Okay.
I mean, and I'm serious, I don't want to, I mean, as long as I'm on this board, I'm not going to approve anything that is a picture like that again. Because we've been through this now twice.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a little I'm not saying it's misleading. I misread it. Let's put it that way. So I had an expectation.
Mhm.
And that's my fault. I don't know, but I'm here. So I'm one of 5 people. I'd like to see, and you know, Mike's suggestion, what you want, and now, and continue, and leave that other one with the plan that you just sent us, but make sure that they're all the same ways to look at it.
Okay.
That's just me. I don't know. if
No,
anyone
no,
else agrees with that or not.
you're reiterating what we're all saying.
And I think submit the permits, plans, if you got them for the monitor.
Yeah.
And he can start his review. And
Yeah,
I
we're
just
okay
think-
with the monitor. Let's
yeah, I
not
just-
muddy the waters
I
of
just
that.
think
Let's-
waiting 2 weeks for Thanksgiving is not
Right, right.
shattering.
No, I agree.
No, and we'll get you moving, just.
Okay.
I don't think it's fair to say you.
I think that drawing's very deceptive because there's all these trees. in front of it. So one can interpret it with porches, one can interpret it without porches.
Make sure
We
you
didn't
have
draw the
what
plan.
we approved to with you. We can look at that and, you know, we are going to show everything visually with trees. Again,
Yeah.
consistent as possible, in a nice setting. We can compare
Yeah.
apples and apples and just,
You guys still working on it?
Yeah,
No, I think we're.
you guys, do you understand what we need?
I understand what you need.
John, do you understand?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's what I said. It's 24
That's it.
feet- It's 24 feet across the front. The yellow quote covered porch with that doesn't extend across the top. 9 feet interior hold, right? The interior of that.
Right, but if you
And
did,
it's 9 feet 8 inches or whatever.
You want to pull the little one out a little bit
you
more.
did a little notch,
Right.
you have enough for 2 chairs.
Right now, the notch is 2 feet in width.
All right, so
You
if
can
make
see
it
the
two- if you
dimension
make
right
it
here.
2 more feet, you can put a chair there.
You're saying instead of having the 16-foot
I
unfinished space.
don't think you need to go across the whole.
No, you just bring it, you're just saying, Mike, you bring it out
No, I
another
was
2
just saying-
feet here, so you.
I was just saying, if you wanted to leave it like it is, just change. Unfinished space, 2 feet by, if that's 4, what is that?
You want to get rid of the notch,
Most
in
people
other
finish
words.
that space. I mean, that space that people care about.
Well, then figure out some way to get 2 chairs on the porch.
And you were
Well,
talking,
the
like,
porch,
you're,
not a
you're,
cover-
you're
not a
talking
cover.
about just notching it like up here.
No, yeah, whatever you want to do.
Pull it out that way.
That, pull it out that way too. You know, I just threw out an idea.
No, I understand.
I think it's very, I think this is very resolvable. I just think it wasn't looked at.
I agree. Okay, all right. I think we got it.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Good to see everybody. Oh, wait, Ed has comments.
Whoa, Ed, stop.
Public comment.
We're going to take public comment on this item now. If there's anybody here in the public that wants to speak on this item, please stand up, state your name and address for the record. Now, let the record reflect that Supervisor Partridge is recused himself from these discussions and is speaking as a member of the general public, since he is in fact one of the 10% that has purchased one of these units so far. So, Mr. Partridge.
Ed Partridge, 4 Gartley Drive, Town Square. So I guess at 18 years, 8 on the school board and 10 on this board, it's the first time I ever got to speak from this side of the pulpit. So my conflict of interest, just to put on the public record, is that my wife and I purchased one of these houses, homes. And so as Tina mentioned, what I recollect, that this whole discussion, regarding porches, it obviously wasn't clear because it's still being discussed. So my wife and I went to the sales office just to look at this on her request. And by the time we got back home, she wanted to put a deposit on one. So I don't see if you have these. I don't know if you're able to get them, but this is what my wife and I purchased. So we got an end unit. It's a traditional. If you want to call it a porch, it's 2 feet. It comes out 2 feet. We have the end unit. The one next door does not have the overhang or the quote porch. And that's what we bought. And as my wife said to me tonight, what we bought, I didn't, buy this to walk out the door and look to my right and see somebody else sitting on the porch. That's what we paid a lot of money for this. Now, there's 15 buildings here. And as far as how many were sold, not counting today, there was actually 10 sold. And within 5 buildings. There's 10 other people like me that made this purchase. Now, traditional versus modern, I don't have a count for you. I also know that, talking to the sales guy, he was about to close the sale today, so maybe there's more than 10, maybe there's 11 or 12 now. But the people that, like me, that paid a lot of money for these and paid a lot of money not to walk out and look to my right and see a couple people sitting on the porch, that's what I bought. It's a lot of money. And so myself and the other 9 people, and I don't know if I could speak for them because I don't even know if they even know that this is happening, but they have one of these for the traditional, and they have one for the modern. And this is what they bought. And then inside the brochure, it gives the dimensions of the room and so forth. So right now, we're changing the design of what 10 people, potentially 10 people, or maybe more, like myself, already purchased. This information was on the website. That's where I got this from. Gives you the updated, the red ones are sold, green are available, and there's 2 down here that are for the office. So, I mean, changing the design of, I'm a resident, I don't know if the other 9 people are, but changing the design of, that could impact 10 different residents, maybe who are downsizing in Newtown Square. I don't know if that's a prudent thing to do, because that's not what I bought. And that's not what I want Rockwell to deliver. Now, I did talk to my wife, and she said that if this porch extends from 2 feet to 6 feet, that she can live with that. However, we're going to lose right now, what we bought was 10 feet of green space. And once you bring this out another 4, obviously, we're not going to have 10 feet of green space, so it reduces the grass. Now we're going to have, what, 6 foot? And again, we can live with this if that's what Rockwell comes back and tells us, you know, was approved. But, you know, to redesign this and then have 10 people like myself who spend a lot of money for these places, because I'm not going to buy this place and come out and look to my right and see a porch. It's not what I bought. It's not, and this has been readily available for
And that's where
for
I got
months.
the information, Ed,
Hmm?
because that's where I got the information, and I noticed that it didn't have the porch. So I
Right.
asked the question, that's where it came from.
Okay, and like I said, I can take I don't desire it. I want what I bought. If this thing needs to be pushed out 4 feet, I don't know how the other people feel if these are sold. You know, I can live with that, but to sit here and any delays, it's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal. Because I need to sell my house, and I was supposed to be in this late spring or early summer. And it's an 8-month build. And the more we delay this, the further that goes. So if I sell my house and get what I need from the house, then I may have a gap where, you know, I need to find a place to live. So, matter of fact, let me have that water on. My mouse is right here. Thanks. Yeah. No, seriously, and I don't know how the other 9 people who purchased these, what their predicaments are, but I would tend to think that any delay is going to hurt them. It's definitely going to hurt me. It's already hurt me.
Can I ask a question? Real quick. You keep throwing the number 11 and 10, but we don't know whether there's 11 or 10, playing devil's advocate here. We don't know whether there's 11 or 10 bought that model or the other model, correct?
That's right, and I'm not here to tell you that, but I mean, I think Rich might know that, or
So it could be.
these
well,
guys could find that out.
I did
but-
just ask that question to Rockwell, and they said they didn't know what that number was. So going off of their expertise, I would say that we don't know. It could be higher, it could be lower. But I
The
guess the
one
question I
next to
have,
me was sold.
let me ask this question, Ed. Why, if the position that this board has taken is that we said porches, they started marketing schematics without porches. How is that not a Rockwell issue and not a township issue? Why would you, I get the argument that you make that the township is now changing something that you didn't necessarily buy, but they're not forcing you to finish that deal. I'm sure there's recourse through you, and I don't know what you signed, and I'm not going to get into that, but that is not necessarily a township issue. It's more of what Rockwell advertised.
It is a township issue. It is a township issue, and I'm a resident, and it's impacting me. The delay is impacting me already, and if Mike says another 2 weeks, that's another 2 weeks. That's impacting me, and I bought this, and if you bought this, you would be standing here too, and you would want what you bought. And Rockwell believed that they had an approval to market this. Now, whether they did or not, this dispute about porches going back and forth, I mean, this just started a couple of weeks ago.
No.
I mean, I bought this
I
thing.
asked the question a month ago, and we're wasting a lot of time here. They're gonna give us for the next one, you'll give us the plans, right?
We'll give you the plans, but just for the record, Rockwell put the plans in, full set of plans.
Look towards that microphone.
In
Sorry.
August. And never got notification there was an issue until I was told at an October 11th meeting that there was an issue with the design. So, you know, they submitted a full set of plans. 2 months later, or 2.5 months later, at a public meeting, someone mentions, oh, I don't like the porches, or there's no porches. So, you know, they did submit plans. They submitted a full set of plans with dimensions to the township. And there was never a formal review done. There was never any formal notification back or anything else that there was an issue. Okay. So I just want that on the record here. Like,
I think that's fair, but I think it's also fair to say that this board doesn't receive, we don't sit at the township building and receive plans. So my understanding is that the way that we were notified of this is that we saw, like anyone else in the general public, through social media, that they were selling homes. And that's the image that we saw. So I get what you're saying, and it's a valid point if we were saying that the township made a mistake. What we're saying is that there is clearly some sort of miscommunication between what this board authorized and what Rockwell put out there.
What we approved didn't match that drawing that's on
What I
the
bought.
screen. So, and that's, I think, the fundamental
I
problem.
think we
We're not trying to hold you up, John. You know,
And
But
I've
my
made, every
point-
time you've asked
It
us
kind
to
of
be
feels that way,
available,
John.
I've been available for this. And I'm just,
Why do you feel like that?
No one's trying to hold you up.
it does. I mean, we took the right steps. We submitted plans in August and a comments passed at a public meeting in October. Nobody ever said anything. We never got a formal letter saying we have an issue with
Do
this.
you disagree that what you submitted in plans did not match or did match what we
Well, that's
approved?
why you submit plans for review back.
We don't, no. We approved a certain look, a certain house. We expected that that would be the plan that would be submitted and we wouldn't have a question. Okay?
I mean, if I
We
could
didn't
look-
create the problem. You guys wanted changes to what we approved, and that's the process we're going through right now.
And I understand that. I think I go back to. Look at what was approved. There is not a significant difference. But we should admit it. And the difference is how everyone interpreted it. Tina interpreted porches. We didn't.
no, we said
necessarily.
porches.
There were
And
2-foot porches on every other unit. Center unit.
no, we weren't specific. We said porches.
Right,
So-
that's the, and I think that's the disconnect. Now we're trying to work through that disconnect. So I just don't want the board to think that somehow Rockwell was trying to.
No, we
say
didn't,
something
we didn't
different,
say that.
Or they submitted something that was different.
Never said that.
Okay.
And
But
when the
you'll-
comment-
But,
and
but
also-
wait, can
and
I
also when-
speak, please? Can I speak?
Sure.
When you all came in to do the stacked townhouses, Rockwell came into the planning commission and showed their plans. You guys didn't come and ask the planning commission to show the renderings. Because we assume, I assume then if you didn't come to planning commission, then the renderings were gonna match. That's all I'm saying.
I think we
Can I just
spent.
clarify what the next step, just so I know, so I can facilitate the process for, so they're gonna come up with renderings consistent with the three-dimensional type renderings that they provided today. The porches going all the way across the front that are staggered in 2 feet and out 2 feet based on the.
So I want to see what they want to do, the
Yes.
same way that they showed the porches all the way across. Now, maybe if they show it in the 3D or 2D, I'm not going to say this, maybe that satisfies it. I don't know. But the way that, they,
Understood. So they're gonna come back with 2 sets of renderings at a minimum, right? One with all the way across like they came in today compared to what they want to do now. But what they want to do now is 6-foot porches every other unit, right? You don't want to go back to 2-foot porches every other unit.
Correct, because you want to.
Okay, so you want to compare to 6-foot, that three-dimensional sketch of 6-foot porches every other unit, which is what they want to do now, versus what they did now. And is there anything else that you want depicted in between? For instance, 3-foot porch all the way across the front.
I think what we want depicted in between is Mr. Russo's suggestion. of
I
a-
just suggested
Something
that we
along
try to
those
solve the
lines.
problem. Because if we were talking, I mean, I think a 3-foot porch can be usable. I'm not sure of that. It would pass code.
Are you gonna put a 3-foot porch here?
Potential. I'm just saying.
It's not a full porch.
Well,
He's not
it's
talking about
not
a full porch. He's
But-
talking about a notch.
If
I
you
was
want
talking
to
about
change the
non-residential.
design, if you want to change the design of these things, I don't
Yeah, I
have
think
a
you
problem
really
with
should
that,
sit down
but there's
I really
10.
think you should
All right,
sit down and
we're-
you're alienating everybody here.
Mike, I'm not alienated.
You're
I'm
alienating everybody here
protecting
because
my
you heard
investment.
your argument and you're taking this meeting for no reason, saying the same thing for the last half hour.
Mike,
I'm just
I'm
telling you,
protecting
I'm
my
giving you some
investment.
advice.
You would be up here too. Look, there's 15 buildings, dealing with the 10 buildings where, no one's purchased them. I mean, change the design on those. But for the people that already purchased, I mean, my appeal would be to
to let them move forward with what was sold for those 5, for those people.
And-
And then change the design on the rest of it.
We have your comments. I believe John and Greg know what we need for the next meeting. Rich seems to be straight on what we need for the next meeting. The only thing I want to ask Rich, Mr. Neese, if we could get a copy of what the board originally proposed, the actual resolution that we approved, along with whatever documentation that went around way with that, so we can see what we originally approved. I need to see. that. I would just-
Your approval resolution says consistent with the presentation attached, and I'll show you the.
Yeah, it was the
presentation.
March 2020. I think
Yeah,
Christie
well,
showed
please
you the
have a
first
copy
meeting.
for everybody on the board with that, so we know what we approved, that's all.
Just one clarification. I looked at the statistics of the sales. 5 of the 10 are in traditional buildings.
Okay. Thank you.
Updated my statistics.
Are they on the same building?
There's 3 different traditional buildings sold.
Thank you.
So it's not a fine.
We're gonna get this done at the next meeting.
I actually just have one question, Greg, and it
Sure.
might be to Christie, actually. I know, I'm sorry, but we keep talking about the porches, which is fair, because that's how this conversation started. I just don't know this answer. The rooftops, is there a privacy screen? Because we're talking, I mean, the concern is, I know I'm convoluting this. I guess what's the, because we're talking about rooftops too, but we've never once talked about the rooftops. Is that gonna be there's some, right, there's some condos and stuff that you have in the city where you can see straight down.
Yeah.
Right? And there's some that are, so what are you guys doing for the?
Well, one thing we are offering is a pergola. People have the option to purchase a pergola on the rooftop. And then there is some privacy screening. I don't have the details of the height of it off the top of my head, but I can bring that for you.
Got it. Yeah, because if we're making the argument, right, where people are making the argument that they don't like the fact that they can see completely down on a porch.
Yeah.
I would think it's the same argument for the rooftop. Right?
Well, I think that they knew that the rooftop was gonna be next to someone else's rooftop. I think the point is
fair.
that they didn't.
I just wanted to make sure we're not going to be talking about this until my birthday in April, which I
That's not.
expect a card from Greg.
I would prefer not to.
I
I'll
haven't
bring
gotten
the
a quote on
details
my
on the
birthday,
height and location of that for you.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, there's a question.
There's certainly a parapet wall that's at least 3 foot, but I, okay.
What's required, but just assuming you're doing your work. I got a hold of my codes person,
Sure.
so that when we walk away, we know where we're at.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
We'll work with you.
Yes, Mrs. Wilson.
Patty Wilson, 4111 Battles Lane. I just need a clarification. Ed said there are 15 buildings, but if there are only 63 townhomes, are some of these unequal in terms of number of units in them?
Yes.
Okay. And then the
The
second thing
maximum
is, what might be helpful for you folks to really get a clear picture is go up to Muirwood. I share Tina's concern. When you get into those entryways, depending on how they're gone, if you walk around Muirwood, it's like you're walking into somebody's tunnel to get to their house. So, having seen the original rendering, which I thought looked quite lovely, saw what they brought in and heard your concerns, I share those because I don't think you necessarily want that look, having now seen it at Muirwood and seen how it's not very community, I would say. It's very much a sort of tunnel into their homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. All right, we're done on this issue. Thank you, Greg. See you again soon. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Just because traditional, your professionals have authorization on the modern.
Yes, correct.
I
Yes.
didn't know if we needed.
No,
action
no,
or-
we're good on the modern.
I hear that.
Run, Christie, run.
Thank you. Good night.
Well, that was easy. Now let's move on to the next one. Item 13.2 under old business. Consider approving the advertisement of the proposed 2022 budget. Do we have numbers or are we just gonna wing it?
We do.
What are we paying the heat bill anymore? I mean,
Yeah, can we
it is
have some savings with reducing the heat?
stifling in here.
Sorry.
I figure if I keep you hot, you'll.
Get angry.
No, we just get angry.
No, it's not working. It's not working.
We are trying to, we're working on that. So we have a presentation. I'm actually, because of the hour, I'm going to ask, I think what we're going to do, if it's all right with the board, I believe the only thing that changed two places, a couple things under the capital and a couple things in the general fund. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So if you are comfortable, and we can go back, we'll go into any detail you want. I don't want to rush it or whatever. But the other funds have had no changes, my
Okay.
understanding. The area where there's changes in capital and general fund, I would like to quickly go through those with you, and then talk about where we are, and then tell us. That makes sense. All right. Rich, if you want to this was our last thing. Want to pick up from there?
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry.
Ed was sputtering all over that. I wipe it down.
Oh, that's not nice.
Just kidding.
So while Rich is getting to the podium, what we did is we took from the last meeting what changes have happened so that we can go through real quickly with you so you know where we are. And so when you start the first line, that's where we came in last meeting. If you remember, we were 319,000 as the gap. And then we said we had 3 areas that we thought we could possibly have some adjustments. We talked about decreasing post-retirement health, medical at this point for the police. And then we also talked about the addition of the real estate tax for AmeriHealth. We're at this point, they've not appealed. We're confident. So we've added that back in. And then we've added in interims. And now Rich is going to pick up with some other changes that have happened since that time when we were at 185, a gap when we left the meeting at the last time. Go ahead, Rich.
So we wanted to give you 2 options, and I'm not sure if it's a mute point at the moment. Option 1 it's not a suggestion from staff. We just need to name one option 1 and one option 2. We don't think one's better than the other. We left that to the board.
I think we can actually skip option 1.
That's what I was going to say.
So option 1, just to look quickly, option 1 had in it at the very bottom, if you see the recycling weekly, I'm going to just have him skip over that. It doesn't really matter. That's the only difference between option 1 and option 2. If we'll go just down to option 2. Go one more down, please. All right, let's go right there.
Sure. So after the last meeting, we walked out with a $185,000 deficit. Since then, we received our November 15th letter from the county with our full assessment for 2022. That was a bit higher than we projected, about $25,000 more. We also changed our collection rate. We went back and looked at our history of collection rate. We always budgeted 97.5. Looking back, we felt comfortable to go up to a 98.5% collection rate, which added about another $61,000. In addition, we went back and we looked at the percentage of people, residents that pay in the discount period. We always budgeted 2%. We reduced that to 1.8. We picked up another $12,000. We got our insurance estimates back in. They were a little bit higher than we expected, so that added about another 27,000. In addition, we went back and we're working with the municipal authority for our services that we provide for the municipal authority. Since they're adding more accounts, there's more work involved. We're going to request an increase of our services, about $17,000. In addition, there was an adjustment to the solicitors retainer. We also removed the health inspector revenue and expense, which was about a $16,000 increase to the deficit. And lastly, we put in recycling, the new number for recycling twice monthly. And that brought us from about $185,000 deficit down to about down to 79,668 for our deficit. So moving on, at the end of the day, with our estimates for 2021 and then the use of fund balance, if we would use it to close that $79,000 gap, we're looking at an unrestricted fund balance, a projected unrestricted fund balance of about $2.2 million in the general funds at the end of 2022. So we just wanted to include some things that we added to this year's budget. Obviously, there was some uniform, contractual, and non-uniform cost of living. There's an officer. We added the vehicle replacement program back in, increases for the library and fire company, an increase of $50,000 for the road program as we've been doing over the past 5 years. an increase of 25,000 for the public works replacement and the tree care and stormwater dollars that we've added this year that weren't in previous years. So as Steve said, this is the exact same thing as the other presentation that was given. There has been no changes. So Steve, if you just keep going
Yeah,
until.
we're just going to go all the way down to capital.
There you go. So the one change that we added here, I believe we had $15,000 budgeted for a permanent speed sign. After getting some numbers back in, we actually increased that number to 45,000. That leaves us 1.37 in the use of fund balance for our one-time capital purchases. Down. We also went back and we added our capital fund grant items. So we're projecting using $1 million in use of fund balance, and the remaining 1.2 is covered by grants. Obviously, we can go back in 2022 and hopefully get some additional grant dollars to cover the $1 million. We added some capital projects that we were supposed to be complete in 2021, but for various reasons got pushed to 2022. We would still recommend budgeting them. And last but not least, this is our, we call it our ongoing capital items. These are things like our road program and things along those lines. There was no changes in this. We're still suggesting a $535,000 transfer from general fund to the capital fund for our ongoing capital items. So with all the capital items and all the changes, we would project that we would have a fund balance of about $3 million, unrestricted fund balance of about $3 million at the end of 2022 if we did all the capital items just listed. So with that being said, I'm here for any questions, or we can open it up for discussion.
So Mr. Neese, as I understand the deficit then, or Mr. Lafiata, that's represents about a 2% tax increase. Is that how I see
I
that?
believe it's a 1.3.
Yeah, it's a 1.3.
Good job, guys.
A lot better than last time. You went out to the money tree, didn't you?
Well, I mean, we got, the county has come back and done the interims. I think when we last talked to you, we told you there was no interims being done. The county has come back. We have interims from April through August that have been done. And so that helped us to really make sure our numbers were correct. So we were confident in the numbers that we gave you, and we've taken that into account. The other thing that, there was some changes in regards because of some changes that we got in with insurance and things like that, as we've shared. So I think you had really good numbers at this point. And you can feel pretty confident that's where we are. If you're comfortable with that, that's what we would advertise, and we would go from there.
I mean, we're getting everything that we had thought was important and wanted. So
yes.
We're not cutting services in any way. I think that's good too. So what's the pleasure? We can.
Just real quick, the interim. So you just said, what did you say you got April, August?
April through August.
And did you get January to March before?
Well, hardly. We almost never get interims from January through March. They don't really start in April 10. I mean,
And they end in October.
And they end in October almost every year. It's how they process. So that's pretty
so you don't expect
standard.
to get any more from like November?
Well, we would expect to get potentially September and
Oh, I'm sorry.
September and October. I think we've taken that into account. What we knew that we had in that way.
So if we advertise a 1.3% tax increase, I mean, obviously, we can come back and cover that off somehow later if we want. It gives us an option to either pass that or
Correct.
we can
We
reduce.
just
it
can't.
from
We just
balance.
can't go above it.
We cannot. So once we advertise and you go out, we have to advertise for 20 days, which is what we're doing.
Right.
Which we'll do. You can adjust revenue actually 10% or expenses 10%. And you can adjust a single category 25%. But that would be
right. But where we're at right now with the 70,
I just don't see that happening.
We have all the options.
You have all the options.
So that's what I was.
So if we advertise this, we're not going to be able to take action on it at our December 13th
You
meeting?
can't because we don't have 20 days.
Well, we would have, so we'd have to have a
You have
convene a
20,
special meeting.
you have 19.
Right, I got you. So we'd have to meet, I guess, keeping it on Mondays, either the 20th or the 27th.
That's correct.
Separate motion.
No, I think we can do it all in the same motion, right?
I think that if you want
Set the
to,
meeting.
if you want to do an advertisement, you would say, we want to advertise for whatever date certain you want to have
Right,
your
one motion.
public comment as one motion.
And we're not going to, traditionally, we wouldn't even have a second meeting, so I don't think we're going to put anything else on the agenda for that last meeting other than the budget itself. Don't
Potentially.
look at me like that. Say yes.
Potentially.
We'll have Rockwell all good before then.
I'm-
Be out,
I'm-
they'll get their building permit, Ed will get into his house,
I have-
everybody will be happy.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be. I'm hoping that's the case.
Yes.
I would intend that you might have some checks, just
Oh, well,
because. we
bills and
might
budget
with
related
bills,
items, I
yeah.
got it, I
I
got
I
just,
can find a few items to add on to this.
No, you can't. There'll be no board comment.
I
at
would
that
like to
meeting.
keep it really short, because I know everybody wants to enjoy their holiday.
All right. Does
Is there-
anybody have any specific questions about the budget at this point for Mr. Lafiata or Mr. Neese? Again, I'll remind the audience that we are not taking comments from the public. We will have that at the meeting in which we actually consider the budget. The vote tonight is just simply to advertise the budget.
Go back to the revenue and expense and the 79.
Why don't you just say as presented?
All the way up to the top, almost.
Just say as presented.
Which is option 2. I
Again,
guess.
just go up. Just that's it right there. Is that what you want to
You
see?
ready? Yes.
If you're, whenever you're
No,
ready.
the other one, the other. Sorry. That one.
Whenever you're ready there, Mr.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to advertise the budget. General fund revenue,
10,412,449.
You're making a motion, so you need to allow public comment.
Oh, well, okay. You can request that. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Simpson.
So I'd like to advertise the 2022 Newtown Township budget with general fund revenue at $10,412,449. And the general fund expenses at $10,492,117, which would leave a deficit of $79,668. Just in general, for folks who want to know, that's equivalent to about a 1.3% tax increase. So that's my motion. And I'd like to request a meeting on Monday, December 20th, to take action on that advertised budget. So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Altieri to present or to advertise the budget as presented, as explained by Mr. Partridge, to be voted on at a special meeting on Monday, December 20th. Any further questions or comments from the board on the motion? Any comments from the general? Huh?
Keep shaking that tree, Stephen.
Any comments from the general public on the motion to advertise, not on the specific budget itself? All right. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. There's no additional business listed. Does any board member have any comment? Hearing none. Would any members of the general public like to issue a comment on something that's not on the agenda? If so, please step forward and state your name and address for the record.
AAA bond rating is. I'm going to urge this.
It should be green. Yeah, just
Push it
turn
to
that
green.
on.
The township getting the AAA bond rating is huge. And once again, as a result of it, I hope there's some way that you can not only compliment, but make sure that this particular aspect of the staff, I think they're all very good, but this is huge for this township because as rates start to rise, having a AAA bond rating not only has investors want to invest in you, but they're willing to take less because it's that much more safe. And since I've again urged them to consider doing some borrowing for some of the projects now while rates are low, this even makes it even more even a better idea, I think. So this got taken off the agenda, but I did want to bring to your attention on the Nolan subdivision. They're asking for waivers for sidewalks and curbs. I wish as a board, we would get out of the habit of granting waivers, because this is why we now have skinny streets in Lissitor. This is why now when you look at some things, you go, how did we make that happen? In general, it's because we granted a waiver. I'm also going to say that you guys own the Act 537 sewage facilities plan. Mr. Nolan would like to come in after essentially having, in my view, dissed the township on public sewers years ago. He now wants to come in and he's offering a sewage facilities plan that as a township, I don't think you want to get into. So I'm going to urge you to either ask him to change that plan to at least temporarily have septic systems. They're 1 acre lots. The DEP will allow that. And then do planning for that entire area, because you have Whitehorse right now with septic systems, you know, and you may not know this information, but unfortunately, after all these years with sewage facilities, I do, a lot of them are sand mounds. They're multi-million-dollar homes and they don't have public sewer. So to come in, use grinder pumps, which in and of itself are problematic and truly problematic and will become problematic for the township, both because of the low pressure lines and because of the actual grinder pump. It's just a bad idea for sewage facilities. So if there's a way you can get him to change that plan before you approve any kind of preliminary plan, I would urge you to do that. The last thing is, I saw a picture in the paper or on Facebook of the Earls Lake area. It would really be great if you went and saw what a mess that is now after they did that undoing of the lake. I don't know what pressure you can put on that homeowners association, but that area should be able to be made beautiful now. They should even be able to take that fencing down. It should become a treasure, not a problem for the people in Radnor. And it sure looks like it's a problem, and it's apparently also exposing a sewage facilities pipe. And then, you know, finally, you really are almost there on the budget. So it would be great if it could go even lower, but you know, hey, good job. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. Your comments regarding the absence of curbs and sidewalks are well taken and shared by some on the board. So, any other members of the general public like to offer a comment? Hearing and seeing none, we are in adjournment. Thank you for coming. Have a happy Thanksgiving. And we'll see you all again here on December 13th. Not in this building,